You are listening to A Scary State, and this week we're talking about Georgia. So, Lauren?
Yes, Kenzie?
Let's get scary. I've had different Georgia songs stuck in my head today.
Which one?
Georgia on My Mind. And then Oh Atlanta by, what's her name? Oh, she's like an old country singer.
Huh.
I can't remember.
A lot of country songs come to mind.
Yeah.
I had some, but I don't know what they're called, and then they are now out of my brain, so I don't know.
I'll play one of them when I post about Georgia.
I'm sure. I have no doubts at all.
Well, we hung out this weekend, so we don't have to catch up on anything.
Yeah.
Because we were together.
Lucky y'all.
Yeah.
And then we just spent the last hour and a half catching up more.
Correct. So that means that we could just get started right away, and we'll probably chit-chat later. But,
oh, absolutely.
you know.
All right. So about Georgia. Almost everything about Cumberland Island is wild. Georgia's largest barrier island is home to 9,800 acres of wilderness, including maritime forests, marshes, and more. The Atlantic buffers Cumberland's eastern shores, and endangered loggerhead sea turtles make their nests here. We have talked about sea turtles so much recently, I feel like.
I thought about that too.
Cumberland's feral horses are its most famous inhabitants, but the island is also a home to alligators. Ooh. As the park website advises, quote, "Don't trust that floating log."
Captain, everything.
Yeah. Largely underdeveloped, the island has fewer than 40 habitable residences, a historic inn, and an African Baptist church dating back to the late 19th century. The church gained national attention when the late John F. Kennedy Jr. and Carolyn Bessette,
I think so,
were married there in 1996. The average visit is more likely to include a ferry ride from nearby St. Mary's and some good old-fashioned camping.
You want to know how long it took me to read that sentence over and over before I realized it was his kid and not him?
Oh.
Because I was like, that's not his wife's name. That's not Jackie. And
right.
It definitely wasn't in 1996. And why the fuck was he all the way over in Georgia? That doesn't make any sense. I'm like, oh, it's Skid. Right. Missed the junior part. I was like, he was definitely dead. Anyway.
Wonder how Georgia got its nickname? Cherokee Indians grew peaches in Georgia in the mid-1700s, and today the state produces about 2.6 million bushels a year, making it the third biggest producer of peaches in the United States, behind California and South Carolina. I do love peaches. Mom used to make this thing where she would cut them in half, and then she would put them in, like, cupcake tins and put sugar and all this stuff, and they would get caramelized. You put ice cream on top. That could have been our food for this week.
My childhood trauma is my mom eating fruit all the time, and when she would eat peaches, and I'm like, I'm going to kill myself.
Yeah, that's how I feel when people eat apples.
Fair.
If you cut apples and eat apple slices, that's fine.
Yeah.
But no, I can't do the slurping of the apples.
Nope. No. Anyway, peaches.
I got my peaches out in Georgia.
Oh, there's another one.
Yeah. Okay. With over half the state covered in pine trees and more commercial forest land than any other state, which all come from
goes down
trees.
to Georgia.
He was looking for a soul to steal.
Sounds going to be popping in my head all episode.
I have one and it goes like, da-da-da in Georgia. What's that one?
I think that's Georgia on My Mind.
Oh.
Ray Charles, Georgia?
Yeah.
Something like that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
All right, so we're at like 3.
Yeah. I only know like that smidge part of that song.
Yeah,
what is that? Allison something is her name. She also has another song that I feel like you probably know her better for. But hers I know a lot better because she says Georgia weird in the song. She says Georgia.
Ew.
I don't know why she says it like that. I'm sure she has a very valid reason. But
that doesn't even make sense.
Well, there's 2 G's in Georgia.
Yeah, but Georgia, that's like 3 G's. Georgia.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And well, yeah, it's weird. But that's why I know that song.
It's no wonder Georgia is known for its lumber, resins, and turpentine, which all come from trees. Visit Radium Springs, natural hot springs that flow from the ground at 70,000 gallons a minute. Brasstown Bald is the highest point in Georgia at 4,784 feet. Brasstown Bald, below the northeast peak, is home to Georgia's only, quote, cloud forest, where the area is continually soaked from the moisture of the clouds. Brasstown Bald is also the best spot in Georgia for astrophotographers and astronomers, as it has the least amount of atmospheric turbulence in the entire state. Does that mean like light pollution?
I'm sure that's included.
I like that word. Atmospheric turbulence.
It might also be like, I don't know what kind of stuff planes and shit do to the atmosphere.
I have no idea.
Yeah. But I'm sure it's all included when they say that.
Okay. Just like a nice little blanket statement.
Yeah.
The Appalachian Trail begins in Georgia at Springer Mountain, but only 78 of the 2,168 miles of the Appalachian Trail are in North Georgia.
Do you know which state has the most?
Maine.
Virginia.
Oh. That would make sense. And I hiked it.
We both have our hair up. And they're trying to flick it.
With the little bits down here.
Yeah.
Berry College in Rome has the world's largest college campus, consisting of more than 27,000 acres of fields, forests, and mountains. A majority of the movie Remember the Titans was shot on the campus of Berry College.
Can I tell you that, again, had a moment where I was like, Rome.
Oh my God.
Then I realized that there's probably something in Georgia named Rome, Georgia.
Yeah, you would be right about that. Because here we go again. Marshall Forest in Rome is the only natural forest found within a city's limits in the United States. Interesting.
Which, I don't know what they count Central Park as. I guess obviously not
Maybe
a
it's not a
forest.
natural forest?
That's true. Central Park is man-made, so that is the difference.
Oh.
Yeah.
The only county in Georgia named after a woman is Hart County, named for Nancy Hart. Nancy was a patriot in the fight against the British during the Revolutionary War. We need more places named after women. Rabun County is basically a rainforest, as it is the rainiest county in Georgia and one of the rainiest counties east of the Mississippi. How much does it rain? Ugh.
I don't know. Just took its word for it. It's so bad.
Approximately 60% of the land in Rabun County is in national forests and state parks. Atlanta actually has 55 streets that share the same name, Peachtree Street. Wow. I wonder how much, messed up mail they get.
Oh, a ton.
Yeah.
There's got to be. I mean, unless it's no, it's in the same, unless it has different zip codes.
Okay, ethical question. You get mail in your mailbox. It's not yours, but it's very close by. Do you go drop it off there, or do you just, put it back in the mailbox?
It's like in my building kind of thing?
Down the street a little bit. Yeah.
If I know the person or if I know, where they live, yeah.
Yeah, we've done that before. We've gotten mail and we're like, oh, this isn't far.
Yeah.
We just, popped it in our GPS and dropped it off.
If it's a previous resident of mine.
Oh, no. Oh, yeah, no. We once got someone's diploma. Yeah. And for someone else, we got a credit card, something or other. And I was like, we could so easily steal your identity right now if we were bad people.
100%. I got that a lot, when I first would move into a place. Now I don't get it quite as much, but occasionally there'll be something thrown in there that I'm like, this is not me.
We get it so much because we move apartments every year.
Yeah.
It's so annoying.
Yes.
And I'm like,
absolutely.
why do people not have mail forwarding?
Correct. And then change their address.
Right.
On everything.
On everything. But then there are some times I'll look at something, I'm like, why is that my old address? How have I not changed this yet? Georgia is home to the world's second largest indoor aquarium. This large building holds 8 million gallons of water in total and is home to 100,000 different animals and around 5,000 different species. Up until 2012, it was the world's largest indoor aquarium. It was surpassed, however, by the Marine Life Park in Singapore. I want to go.
I think that's where you can swim with.
Oh, in Georgia? That's not a far drive.
No, it's not. And it's pretty rare to find sea otters in a warm, especially hot state, given that they're thick boys. It needs to be chilly.
The world's largest sculpture is located in Georgia. The last of our interesting Georgia facts tells us about this record-breaking sculpture, which can be found on the face of Stone Mountain.
I just copy and paste. I was like, this is perfect. I'll make it our last fact.
On this monumental feature, you will see the faces of Jefferson Davis, General Stonewall Jackson, and Robert E. Lee. Lee's horse Traveler also features on the monument. The entire sculpture measures exactly 3 acres, is 400 feet off the ground, and is recessed at 42 feet inside the actual mountain.
It's actually really cool looking.
That's wild.
Especially given, when it probably was etched.
Etched.
Or whatever.
Can you pull it up so I can see it?
Yeah. So this is it up close.
Oh, wow.
And then you can click on the other ones to see at a distance. It makes it all that much more insane that they made that.
That's really impressive.
Yeah. I was like, it sucks that it has the people on it that it does.
Right. But the structure behind it is cool.
Right. The engineering and putting it together is pretty cool. Because look how high up it is.
Yeah, that's wild.
So unless the ground was higher up back then, which is possible given erosion, but I don't think
probably not that high.
Not that high.
Well, that's Georgia.
That's Georgia.
And while we have you here, rate and review us.
Oh, yeah.
Everywhere. Thank you. Everywhere you get your podcasts.
If you send us an email at ascarystatepodcast@gmail.com, you can get a free sticker for your positive review and high rating.
Yeah.
You can follow us on social media. We're mainly on Instagram. As soon as I'm done with school, guys, you're going to see a whole new side. We're going to be popping on social media, but right now I don't have the time. So I keep our Instagram active, but we do have a Twitter and a TikTok, and it's all at A Scary State Podcast.
Yeah.
Or pod, or some variation of that.
Yep. You'll find it somewhere.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Those things.
Right now. Throw that in there.
Right now. Right now.
Yeah.
Pause for you. Any story right now. Do it right now.
Welcome back. Thank you for doing that. Also, real quick, I want to give a PSA. Okay.
Oh.
If you are a person who takes birth control, if you get really bad headaches
Ooh, yeah.
or you have headaches that change your vision or anything like that, make sure you talk to your doctor because it can be a sign of like early sign that you could potentially have a stroke. This is something I recently learned. So yeah, just want to throw that out there. If you're on birth control and you get anything, talk to your doctor.
That you didn't get before.
Right, like any headaches, vision changes, talk to your doctor.
Sound like a commercial.
I know, because it was really scary because I just learned all of this bad stuff. Like when I went to my doctor for my yearly thing, and I like told her what was going on and she just got this like look on her face and I was like, ooh, what I just said is bad, isn't it? And she goes, yep. And I was like, okay.
Oh,
So,
Lord. Oh, Lord, oh, Lord, oh, Lord.
I just thought I was getting migraines.
You would think that if that is that severe of a side effect, that would be something they go over with you.
Maybe they mentioned it, but when
Yeah.
they first mentioned it, it was never a thing.
Oh, okay.
Or
yeah.
it was something that like never happened enough that I ever thought anything of it.
Yeah.
So that when she was like, oh, do you get headaches? I was like, no, I get headaches all the freaking time.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. And then, oh, any that change your vision? No. And then I was like, oh, no, wait, there were some. And then I told her about it because I get those like ocular migraines.
Yeah.
And so I told her about it. She goes, how many have you had? And I was like, I don't know, like in the past year, maybe like 10. She goes, 10? I said, maybe less? I don't know.
Wrong answer.
And so, yeah. So we had to change some stuff around.
Well, we are glad that was found sooner rather than later.
I know. Very scary. So continuing on with scary, what do you have today?
So I think this will probably be the most mysterious and bizarre story I have ever told.
Oh,
Good news, no one is murdered or dies.
okay.
Bad news is it's definitely an unsolved mystery.
Mine's unsolved too.
Mine's
probably going to be way less fun.
mine is partially solved, but there's still a lot of questions, kind of like last time.
Oh.
Yeah. There are also a lot of contradictions and empty holes that people have left while telling this story, but I intend to try to share all of them.
I love it, yes.
I noticed as I looked into this case that it is gaining some popularity among the masses, but it was only like 2, I think, and only one was one I heard of.
2 masses.
Yeah. But I hope that my retelling kind of gets us in on the ground floor as
Okay.
people discover this story. My stance as I write this introduction is I want to believe this guy's story is true, and if it is, then it's very heartbreaking. I might change my mind as I write it, and then again when I share it all with you. Right now, I'm still like, yeah, I think I'm on his side.
Okay.
Team him. But
Team him.
that could change.
The him we don't even know of yet.
Correct. So, quick trigger warning. There are mentions of like suicide, abuse, and a whole slew of psychological traumas and disorders. I don't want to say it's not the theme because it is part of that, but it's not the focus.
Okay.
So I'm giving the trigger warning because it's talked about and mentioned at some parts.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but it's really scattered. So I'm sorry, I can't tell you stop listening at this point. And then,
Right.
so I just want to let you know
blanket.
that overall blanket, it's going to be mentioned throughout this story at different parts.
Oh, wait, let me put on my glasses that I got. I got some blue lens glasses.
Oh,
My ones at work broke. So that didn't have a thing, so it was crooked. So then I ordered new ones. I liked the other ones. These ones make me look like dork glasses.
Yep.
The other ones are cute. The other ones are like the tortoise shell.
You know
These ones
what you
don't
look
look
like?
great.
You know what you look like? Remember Pom Pom Zombies?
Oh, yeah, my nerdy character who saved the world.
That's you.
But yeah, when I pulled them out of the pack, I was like, oh, these ones are cute, like the tortoise shell ones. And I said, those will go to work. And then I looked at these and said, oh, these are going to stay home. And I was like, Mackenzie can see me in these because that's fine, but no one else will.
You look beautiful. In 2004, an employee at the Burger King in Richmond Hill, Georgia, went in for their early shift. Upon their arrival, they saw a naked man lying unconscious in front of the restaurant's dumpsters. It was before dawn, but the man was sweating and sunburned. Fire ants crawled across his body, and a hot red rash covered his skin.
Oh.
The employee called authorities, and the man was taken to St. Joseph's Hospital in Savannah. So our story pretty much starts to vary right now. Most of the early reports said that he looked like he might have been beaten and didn't regain consciousness until he went to the hospital. But the most recent article that I found from the New Republic in 2016 said that he was awake but very confused.
Okay.
So who knows? Authorities and hospital personnel assumed the man to be a vagrant and sleeping it off.
Mm-hmm.
An officer filed an incident report indicating that a vagrant had been found sleeping and an ambulance took him to the hospital. And that was it. When he got to the hospital, the man wasn't able to give his name, so he was admitted on August 31st, 2004 under the name Burger King Doe.
Oh.
It was found at a Burger King.
Right. Yes, I put that together.
Okay,
Thank
cool. Aside from the rash and cataracts. Cataracts.
Not
Lauren
the same
Cataract.
name.
My little Lauren Cataracts. Aside from the rash and cataracts that left him nearly blind, Burger King Joe... No, not Joe. Burger King Joe showed no signs of physical injury. He was a white man, most likely in his 50s, and seemed to be in relatively good health. His vitals were good, blood tested negative for drugs and alcohol, and a doctor wrote on his chart that he was, quote, surprisingly within normal limits. Of what? I don't know.
Right.
Everything? Maybe. He was dirty and clearly hadn't bathed in quite some time. He showed signs of previous trauma with 3 small depressions on his skull and some scars on his neck and his left arm, but nothing from...
Yeah. Like nothing current.
Recent. Yeah.
Recent, thank you.
Mm-hmm. While he was doing well physically, his mental state was a myth. He refused to eat or speak. He kept his eyes shut most of the time. He would become physical when a doctor tried to touch his chest. After a few days, he began to eat some ice chips and spoke a few words to a nurse. He told her that he had lived in the woods for 17 years, but when she asked his name, he replied, "They call me BK around here." The nurse clarified that she meant his real name, and he said, "BK, you're getting me confused," and then went silent again. A little more than a week, BK was becoming agitated. He would curse at the nurses and call them beasts and demons. He wouldn't let anyone near him, and if they tried, he would swing his fist and spit in their direction.
Oh.
This part's kind of funny. Well, maybe not to the priest. He asked to see a priest and then denounced him as an imposter. Doctors diagnosed him with catatonic schizophrenia and prescribed a powerful antipsychotic. BK was transferred to the psychological ward at Memorial Hospital. When they asked him questions, he claimed he couldn't remember his name, where he lived, or how he arrived in Georgia. He believed his date of birth to be August 29th, 1948, and he thought that maybe his name was Benjamin with 2 A's.
Benjamin.
Well, the first A is supposed to be there. Min is M-I-N instead of M-A-N.
Oh.
Benjamin.
Benjamin.
Benjamin. Wrong A, but yes. And some blurred, fragmented memories of Denver and Indianapolis.
I love how sometimes I say things and you don't catch it. And then like 2 or 3 seconds later, you're like, oh.
It's like when I'm re-listening to it and you are clearly being sarcastic and trying to give me shit, and it goes, meow. I'm like, yeah, exactly. I'm like, you're stupid. His birthday was the only thing BK felt certain he knew for sure. The doctors treating him at Memorial said BK seemed too lucid to be suffering from schizophrenia, and his memory is no. What the fuck?
I get my pooches on.
Okay, I fixed it. I put only in the wrong place. The doctor treating him at Memorial said BK Doe seemed too lucid to be suffering from schizophrenia, and only his memory for impersonal facts wasn't impaired. So, for example, he was aware that George Bush was president and that America had invaded Iraq, but he couldn't remember anything about his own personal past.
Okay.
The doctor thought he might be feigning, pretending, or inventing amnesia.
Feigning? Yeah.
Not feigning?
No.
You know it's EI?
Uh-huh.
Is it like neighbor?
Probably.
Feigning?
It's feigning. It's not fiending. Because when you said that, I was like, what does that mean?
Well, that's why I put it in parentheses, because I didn't know what it meant.
Yeah,
it means pretending, inventing. Feigning?
Huh?
Well, that's stupid. It shouldn't have an E.
Yeah, feigning.
Feigning. Okay.
I didn't know about the language.
I now hate that word as much as I hate phlegm.
Phlegm.
P-H-E-L-E-M. Any user. He bounced around between hospitals in Savannah, and he eventually ended up at a men's shelter called Grace House. BK later told Neil Forsyth he didn't have insurance and he still had cataracts and he couldn't see more than a couple feet in front of him.
Okay.
Basically. He was trapped by his blindness. He told Forsyth, quote, "You had to leave Grace House during the day. All I could do was sit in the courtyard and wait for them to reopen. One morning I crossed the road. I couldn't see if there were any cars coming." Forsyth asked BK if he was attempting suicide when he did that, and he replied, quote, "Well, I couldn't see the cars." At some point, BK decided he was tired of going by BK Doe and started going by Benjaman Kyle. Benjamin because he thought that that could possibly be his name, and decided on Kyle on a whim, but most likely because it started with K.
Right.
About 9 months after he was found, a charity paid for Kyle's cataract surgery. With his newfound vision, Kyle decided it was time to figure out his actual identity.
Okay.
He told The Guardian, quote, "I didn't recognize the man in the mirror, and I kept asking, is anyone trying to find out who I am?" So before we continue, I want to share the current psychological research and understanding of amnesia. There are different types and what causes them. So according to Medical News Today, when a person develops amnesia, they typically lose memories of important milestones, key events, or people in their life and important facts they might have learned.
Mm-hmm.
People with amnesia are typically lucid and do have a sense of self. In some situations, they can have full memories up to a certain point in time, but have a hard time remembering things afterwards. Sometimes they'll lose memory from before something, but can remember afterward.
Right.
The memory loss is usually patchy, and with a person losing memory of just specific events. Medical News Today describes several different conditions involving amnesia and the many types. The features can overlap. A person can have more than one type, and amnesia can be temporary or long-lasting. So it was believed at the time that Kyle was suffering from fugue or dissociative amnesia,
Okay.
which is still kind of what's accepted. Or, I'm sorry, it is believed that that's what he was suffering from. But in 2010, in the article I found, it called it retrograde amnesia.
I've heard that one before.
Yes. So I'm going based off of that part for the 2010, but then we'll come back to what he was officially diagnosed with and what their definitions are.
Okay.
So Michael Copeland is a professor of neuropsychiatry at King's College London and an expert on retrograde amnesia. And he says that there are two views on the type of memory loss that Kyle is claiming to have. Copeland told The Guardian, quote, technically called focal retrograde amnesia, meaning new memories can still be formed. Many neuropsychologists believed it can be caused by neurological issues such as a head injury, brain infection, dementia, lack of oxygen to the brain, and certain types of strokes. Or it can be caused by psychological reasons or a combination of neurological followed by psychological. He also talks about a fugue state being another form of retrograde amnesia. Copeland says, quote, people go wandering off. Sometimes there's a neurological issue in the past, but it can simply be a sudden precipitating stress such as a marital breakdown, financial problems, or bereavement, often combined with depression or suicidal thoughts. So think Agatha Christie's 11-day disappearance in 1926 that she has no memory of.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Oh yeah, I can't give too much to it because I only learned it when I watched Doctor Who.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, no. However, it is important to note that things are seen slightly differently today, at least according to Medical News Today. So I decided on their definition of traumatic amnesia and fugue/dissociative amnesia because they seem to like a close fit to what was being described and what he eventually was diagnosed with. So traumatic amnesia is, quote, memory loss resulting from a hard blow to the head, for instance, in a car accident. The person may experience a brief loss of consciousness or coma. This type of amnesia is usually temporary, but its duration often depends on the severity of the injury.
Okay.
Fugue or dissociative amnesia is described as, quote, a person can rarely forget both their past and their identity. They may wake up and suddenly have no sense of who they are. The trigger is usually a traumatic event. The ability to remember commonly returns within minutes, hours, or days, but the memory of the triggering event may never come back completely.
What about 51st dates? What would hers be?
That would be, I think it's called like antegrade amnesia. So
all of these things you're saying I've heard.
So she can remember
everything up until the accident.
And then she can't create new memories. Yeah. Well, we'll get to that. Well, not that part specifically, but I do mention that. Not the movie.
I know you would have made a much bigger deal if you mentioned the movie later in this.
But I do talk about antegrade versus retrograde.
Okay.
La, 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 la. One final tidbit. The Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders lists amnesia as a type of dissociative disorder. This is usually antegrade or retrograde, so memory loss after the trauma, can remember before but has trouble with new memories, 51st dates, versus memory loss before trauma and can't remember anything from before but can remember what happened after. So kind of what he is experiencing.
Okay.
Psychological amnesia is typically caused from psychological trauma or stress without the presence of any physical cause. Meaning there might have been something physical in the past, but it's not like you got hit in the head and then therefore you don't remember because you had this trauma and you got hit in the head.
Okay.
It just means that you had this really bad experience and then going forward in life, if you are triggered or whatever, you might not remember. So, for example, there are dissociative conditions that can present amnesia, so it can also be a symptom. So think like dissociative identity disorder or PTSD. Some of the traumatic causes or triggers can be experiencing a violent crime or terrorist attack, being sexually, physically, or emotionally abused, experiencing trauma while serving in the military, or surviving a natural disaster.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. So those kinds of things are what can cause psychological trauma.
Okay.
So like those big, big traumatic events that people might experience.
Makes sense, yes.
Yeah. Medical News Today says, quote, any intolerable life situation that causes severe psychological stress and internal conflict can lead to some degree of amnesia. Psychological stressors are more likely to disrupt personal historical memories rather than interfere with forming new memories. So he doesn't know much about himself or his past, but moving
Is aware
forward,
of current life.
he will remember the things that happened to him from here on out.
Right.
So here are some of the memories that Benjaman Kyle was able to convey after he was found. So he had memories of being a child in Indianapolis, including well-known locations throughout the city. He remembered monuments, movie theaters, and even having a grilled cheese sandwich at the state fair. He also had memories of the Denver area. He had memories of being in a library and reading restaurants and institutions. He remembered various restaurants and other landmarks. He also had detailed knowledge of restaurant management and food preparation equipment. He suspected that he had 3 brothers, though he could not recall their names or faces.
That's sad.
In fact, Kyle said he could not think of a single person he knew. He had no memory of living in Georgia or how or when he got there and what happened to him prior to 2004.
And what year is he found? 2004? Okay.
As time went on, little bits of memories would come back to him. So at one point, he remembered arriving in Boulder, Colorado, shortly before the big Thompson Canyon flood. So a lot of like the little things he starts to remember help people who help him out later with timelines. Like, okay, you might have been in this area given what you remember around this time.
Yep.
In Denver, he loved Mexican food at Mama Elena's and hated the service at a restaurant called Azar's. He was also later hypnotized and to try to recall some of his memories, and they believe that he was raised Catholic and even attended Catholic schools based on his reaction to the mention of nuns during the session.
Oh,
yeah,
that's interesting.
I thought so too. So Kyle was eventually transferred to J.C. Lewis Primary Health Care Center, which is a resident for the homeless population in downtown Savannah. Something to note, he's unidentified and uninsured. He was an administrative nightmare for hospitals and shelters that he was sent to. He has no real ID. He has no social security number, which made things a lot more difficult. He couldn't get a job. He couldn't file for unemployment or any sort of government program.
God.
Yeah.
My dad once, his social security number somehow got messed up. They entered it wrong. Yeah. So they put a different number where one should have been. And he said, oh my God, he was dealing with that for months and months and months. He's like, this is your issue where you typed it in wrong.
Right.
Why is this such a big deal? And it messed up so much.
Oh my gosh, I can imagine. I love how they always act like we're being dramatic for a problem they caused.
Right. And it's this is my literal identity.
Right. You fucked it up. Anywhere else, if you were a customer, so to speak, and they fucked it up, oh my God, I'm so sorry. We'll fix that for you right away. Yet the government is calm down.
That's too bad.
Yeah. I'm going to live my life even though you can't go live yours.
Right.
So Kyle was a big hit at the Career Center. He was a big people pleaser. He would always volunteer for chores like stripping beds and mopping floors. He was a big man, thick in the chest and legs with a long, narrow nose and a bristly push broom mustache. So think like Lorax.
Oh.
Kyle spoke in a monotone, in a voice that was thin, high, and slightly whiny, with a hint of a Midwestern accent. He read a lot, mostly science fiction, and he liked to fix things and listen to NPR. He loved to talk about restaurant equipment, industrial-grade stoves, high-end coolers. Mostly, though, he stayed inside his own head. Kathleen Slater was a psychiatric nurse working at the care center and remembered, quote, at first I just observed him. I guess everyone was suspicious. But he was so sweet and clever that I couldn't find it in me to doubt him. After that, I got angry because no one was helping to find out who he was. Slater was a middle-aged nurse with a warm, grandmotherly manner. Kyle and Slater grew close, and she resolved to help Kyle figure out who he was. She later recalled, quote, I figured it would take 6 months to figure out his real name. Tops. Someone had to know him. He didn't just drop out of the sky. Oh, how wrong she was.
Yeah, anytime you give a quote where it's 6 months tops, you're that did not happen.
That did not happen. It was not 6 months. Police, the FBI, journalists, missing person experts, countless amateur detectives, they all tried to figure out who Kyle was, and they all wound up stumped. The government could find no record of Kyle's previous life. Even more mysteriously, no one seemed to recognize him. His picture appearing repeatedly on television and the internet was viewed by millions, yet not a single person stepped forward to say that they knew him.
That's so weird.
A decade after he was discovered in front of the dumpsters at Burger King, he was still being called Benjaman Kyle. So Kyle is fit to leave J.C. Lewis, but his lack of social security number made that very difficult. So instead, he actually begins working there, staying for free and getting paid very, very small wages to work very, very long days. Slater said, quote, he worked his days off. He had nothing else to do.
Right.
Finally, in June 2007, she invited Kyle to move into her spare room. Slater assumed, like most others, that Kyle had been attacked by someone who had beaten him and stolen his clothes. So she was surprised to learn that the police in Richmond Hills had never opened a criminal case. To them, there was no evidence he had been attacked, but an official investigation was opened when Slater made contact 3 years after the event.
Wow.
Slater alerted Georgia Senator Jack Kingston, who notified the FBI. Special Agent Bill Kirkconnell agreed to take fingerprints from Kyle and run them through the FBI's national database.
Okay. Why wasn't that done at the beginning when we have no idea who this person is?
Because I think he's a vagrant and he doesn't matter.
Jeez.
The FBI fingerprint database is the largest in the world, containing more than 113 million sets of prints. The FBI also placed Kyle's photo in the missing persons page. In Kirkconnell's recollection, Kyle was the first person ever to be classified as missing, even though his location was known.
That's wild.
Neither the fingerprints nor the photo provided any answer. Kirkconnell also sent copies to Interpol and Canadian authorities. He made discreet inquiries with the U.S. Marshals on the off chance he might have been enrolled in witness protection. Nothing. He was listed in the FBI database as unidentified living person. Bo Preston, an employee of the Georgia Bureau of Investigation who trained officers in how to use the FBI database, wondered if Kyle was already in there under a different name. At any one time, the database contains approximately 80,000 active missing person cases, which cry.
Wow.
Preston asked the system to provide her with a list of missing persons who were physically similar to Kyle dating back to the 1970s. Over the next year, Preston and a friend poured over 350 cases generated by the system. Several times she thought she found Kyle's true identity, but ultimately, none matched.
Jeez.
Disappointed, but decided to incorporate Kyle's case into her lesson plan on the off chance that an officer might eventually recognize him.
Ooh, that's smart.
I thought so too. Kyle was featured in the Savannah Morning News under the headline, "A Real Live Nobody." Media outlets from all over the country began calling for interviews. Kyle was dubbed Nowhere Man and the Living John Doe. As each story ran, more tips poured in and they led nowhere. He was invited to appear, so he was also invited to appear on Dr. Phil in October of 2008.
Of course he was.
Appeared on the show, told his story. So as a result, his memories of Denver, mainly around this like public transport system, were dated to the 80s. So
Okay.
they're like, okay, he was here sometime between 70 and 80.
Okay.
Those of buying grilled cheese sandwiches at the state fair for a quarter makes it 50s in that area, which would make sense if he was born in 1948.
Right, yeah.
The show received a barrage of tips and theories. Not a single one helped. Kyle concluded the segment with an anecdote, which, oh no, not this one. It's later on that's sad.
Oh, great.
Sorry. I didn't say it was sad. I just said nobody died. Several months after arriving at the men's shelter, he had the surgery that was paid for by the charity to remove his cataracts. Once he could see again, he inspected himself in the mirror and he was surprised by how old he looked. He was expecting to see a man in his 30s.
So that means he must feel good.
Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and that also means if you're in your 50s, to you, 20 years have gone, like, you're still back 20 years ago.
Right.
Like, that's where you're expecting to see yourself.
Oh my God.
Yet the face staring back at him was deeply lined with graying hair and sunken eyes. He didn't know, he claimed, that he was so old.
Oh.
Kyle told The Guardian 2 years after the debut of Dr. Phil's episode, quote, "I think all the obvious things have been tried. More and more, I think that one day it's going to pop into my head. Pop, it'll all be back." Kyle said he had no wish to become, quote, "a famous nutcase who can't remember who he is." His media outings were carefully designed to spread a coverage of his story in the hope of solving it, and when he met people, he tended not to tell them about his situation. Kyle said, quote, "You get two reactions. They want to tell you their theories or they think you're mad. Neither is much fun for me."
Right.
The problem is he claims to suffer from an extremely rare condition that attracts endless public curiosity.
Mm-hmm.
When cases have arisen, the media gets a hold of the story, and the result has often been the same, a hoax. Slater tried to hold out hope and remain optimistic that they would figure out who Kyle really was. As time went on and nothing was found, Kyle became more hopeless, depressed, and was showing a lackluster attitude in finding out who he was.
Oh.
The New Republic article from 2016 made a great point. This one's a sad one.
Oh, good. Okay.
They said, quote, "It's one thing to be missing. It's far worse to realize nobody is missing you."
Oh, Mackenzie.
I know.
That's
punch,
so sad.
Stab heart, twist, knife, yank out.
Oh, that's so sad.
Yeah. I was like, damn.
Oh.
From that moment on, I had nothing but sympathy for this guy.
Yeah. Oh, wait. Oh, yeah. At the beginning, you said, I don't know what I have, sympathy or not.
Well,
So I know something's going to happen.
I'll go over my theory at the end
Okay.
of what I think of why there was this contradicting information.
Okay.
Okay. We're not there yet, though. Oh, one thing I also want to note is that pretty much all the people that helped him, it was out of the goodness of their heart. Volunteering their hours, like doing things at no charge, obviously taking him in.
Yeah.
So everyone did this out of the goodness of their heart. And so just put a pin in that.
Okay.
In 2009, a woman named Colleen Fitzpatrick, who calls herself a genealogical detective,
Oh, wow.
reached out wanting to help Benjamin figure out who he was. She had a PhD in physics from Duke University and started her own optics company in her garage where she made laser measurement equipment for NASA.
Okay.
This is my lady.
Casual.
Right. In the early 90s, she grew interested in genealogy. She ended up writing several books that explained how to use public records and DNA databases to explore your family history.
Oh, that's cool.
She eventually began consulting on difficult and tricky genealogy cases. She helped correctly identify the remains of a child that had been found on the Titanic.
Oh!
She was also able to determine the identity of a person from an arm that had been preserved in the Alaskan snow since a 1948 plane crash to a guy in Ireland.
Incredible.
Isn't that crazy?
That's incredible.
And the newspaper goes like into depth of how she did it, like some of the steps she took, and it's really cool. Fitzpatrick went to Georgia to visit with Kyle. She said she found him friendly and articulate. She was also stunned to learn that no one seemed to be looking for him. Fitzpatrick began her search by placing articles about Kyle in newspapers in Indianapolis, Denver, and Boulder, places where he remembered living at some point. She also contacted the Department of Motor Vehicles in Georgia, Colorado, and Indiana and had them run facial recognition searches on driver's license. Kyle remained adamant that his birthday was August 29th, 1948. He would always say 10 years to the day before Michael Jackson. So
okay.
That was like the one thing he was like, that is my birthday.
Right.
So Fitzpatrick checked birth announcements from that time. She also poured over birth certificates, church records, and military draft records. She passed out flyers at several major restaurant conventions and mailed them to a handful of homeless shelters in Indiana. Fitzpatrick also looked for clues on Kyle's body. Benjamin wore no ring, had no tattoos, piercings, or birthmarks, but he did have several scars. An inch-long scar right above his collarbone appeared to be consistent with a cervical discectomy. I'm assuming dislocated shoulder in fancy terms. I didn't think to look it up until just now.
I don't feel like dislocated. Did you say dislocated shoulder?
Cervical disectomy.
Yeah. And you said dislocated shoulder?
And, oh no, that's in his neck.
Yeah.
But why would the scar be on his collarbone?
Above the collarbone.
Oh.
Huh. What is it?
Hey, it's what I have. It's a type of surgery.
You've had this?
No. It's when you have, if you have a degenerative disc in your neck.
Mm-hmm.
And if you need to have surgery to like remove the nerve pain that is caused, this is what the surgery is called.
Oh.
Yeah. So the scar was from a surgery he had. He also had 2 arc-shaped scars roughly parallel that ran across his left elbow. These last 2 scars he suspected were related from falling off a loading dock in Indiana when he was in his 20s.
Okay.
An x-ray was taken of his elbow and it did show that it had been secured with 2 screws, but the type of screw was too common to be traced.
Mm-hmm.
Finally, Fitzpatrick looked even deeper into Kyle's genetic makeup. She knew that the FBI had already run his DNA through the database of 7 million samples and produced no matches.
Wild.
But Fitzpatrick wasn't looking for matches. She was looking for relatives.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
Using a testing kit donated by 23andMe, Fitzpatrick submitted Kyle's sample. She would use the results to build a potential family tree.
And sorry, what year are we in?
2009, 10-ish.
Okay.
The test showed that Kyle shared a large amount of DNA with a family named Powell. This doesn't necessarily mean that his last name is Powell, but that he shared a common ancestor sometime within the last century.
Oh, centuries a long time.
Yeah. He appeared to have a number of particularly close genetic matches in the Western Carolinas, particularly in Transylvania and Pickens counties. Fitzpatrick placed a picture in the Transylvania newspaper and began to contact other Powells and collect their DNA to see if they might have been related to Kyle.
Mm-hmm.
After more than a year of work and hundreds of hours of donated time, she finally felt she was on the verge of a breakthrough.
Ooh.
But then, just as she felt she was getting close, Kyle abruptly cut off all contact with her.
Why?
Well,
I'm sure you'll tell me, but...
Yes. Gavin Slater did an interview with Matt Wolf, who wrote an article about Kyle's story, and she told him, quote, "My first impression of Kyle was someone who was very, very smart and highly intelligent. But all facts. He had a photographic memory for streets. He'd tell you about all different kinds of meat slicers. Zilch, though, in the emotional intelligence department." Pin that one, too.
Okay.
She had felt sorry for Kyle, but she had also relished the idea of solving the mystery of his identity. She said, quote, "I guess I'm a problem solver. I've always liked to solve problems. I couldn't resist solving this one. I was so sure I could do it." Kyle, though, seemed less than eager to aid in the search. She would ask him repeatedly, quote, "Why don't you seem more interested?" To which he would reply, quote, "Well, I've been in this identity, Benjamin Kyle, for a long time, and even if they figure out who I am, I'm probably going to feel like Benjamin Kyle." At first, Slater found his response both reasonable and sad. But as the years passed, her doubts grew. She began to wonder whether Kyle's amnesia was genuine. She recalled to Wolf, quote, "I'm dead sure that there was trauma, but I think he likes being stuck in the place that he's stuck in." His motives don't seem to be financial. Several times Slater tried to raise money from supporters to help Kyle get an apartment, but he refused all donations. Perhaps it was all the attention that he was getting. She recounted, quote, "All of these people all over the country trying to solve this case, that's a hell of a drug."
Mm-hmm.
When Kyle moved in with Slater, it quickly became clear that he was a hoarder. He would go to a dump and come back with catalogs, file cabinets, broken tools. He didn't drink or smoke, but he collected old lighters and wine bottles. Slowly, the house filled up with junk. Kyle also started signing himself up to receive catalogs on the internet for restaurants which he'd read cover to cover, but also for office supplies and swimming pool equipment. Slater believed, quote, "I think he liked a lot of things coming in his name."
Mm-hmm.
Kyle also began making repairs on the house and soon had projects in every room. After he tore up her bedroom floor, Slater slept on the couch for 18 months.
I
It-
would have called someone in at that point and been like, fix this.
Right. It seemed Kyle was creating problems just so he could fix them. Slater reflected, quote, "One of his things is to make himself indispensable." He thought if he had unfinished jobs, he couldn't be kicked out.
Right.
In February 2011, Slater had finally had enough. She gave Kyle a deadline to get out. She had found a shelter in Savannah, bought him a prepaid cell phone, and she said that she was going to be happy to help him continue the search. The day before the deadline, Kyle asked to burn some of his old mail in the backyard. She said no, because it was windy and dry and he didn't have a burn permit. But he starts the fire anyway. Slater orders him to stop, and he doesn't even look at her. When the mail's finished burning, Slater told Kyle that he had to leave immediately. Still even offers him a ride to Savannah, but he refuses. He walked out the door just carrying his backpack, and that was the last time Slater spoke to him.
What the heck?
Years later, Slater still felt betrayed by all the time and energy she spent helping Kyle.
Yeah.
She told Wolf in her interview, quote, "I feel like an idiot for putting up with it, but when you're in the middle of it, ... and she trails off."
Yeah.
So the guy who wrote this Matt Wolf guy, he also shared his thoughts on Kyle after interviewing Slater, kind of what he thought, she was thinking and the kind of impression he gives off. So he said, quote, "Listening to her talk, it occurred to me that Slater was drawn to Kyle not just because his legal identity posed a mystery that cried out to be solved, but because his personality seemed almost engineered to elicit sympathy. His blankness, his sense of being lost and unwanted, his eagerness to please, to people of a certain disposition, Kyle came across as a wounded puppy, just wanting to be given a name."
Mm-hmm.
Slater was angry at Kyle, but she was also angry at herself for seeing him in a quality that might not really be there. So Kyle's story also became popular on websleuths.com. On April 3rd, 2010, the manager of the website, Trisha Griffith, posted a statement in regards to Kyle's case, and she said, quote, "Dear Web Sleuth members, after reviewing the documents I received relating to the Benjaman Kyle case, there is no doubt in my mind that Benjaman Kyle was not the victim of any sort of head injury as he claimed. I am not posting these documents today as there are some privacy issues that need to be addressed. The last thing I intend to do is violate a person's privacy." They were never posted, by the way. While reading these documents, I noted that there was absolutely no physical evidence to support him being beaten. None. It appears he passed out alongside a dumpster. You can come to your own conclusions as to why he might have passed out alongside a dumpster, because I now have proof that Mr. Kyle's story of being beaten and suffering severe head injuries appears to be complete fabrication. I'm keeping his forum closed. It was because of his alleged head injuries and his injuries from the alleged beating that we are led to believe that he lost his memory.
Right.
Since this key link in the chain of the story is gone, there is really nothing else that needs to be said. I invite Mr. Benjaman to send me documentation that proves otherwise. But until I have that documentation that can be verified as this was, his forum will remain closed. I also spoke with Richmond Hill Police Department. I was told without a doubt that there were no injuries to Benjaman other than he was naked and had scabies. Winston Churchill said, "Success is not final, failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts." To all our wonderful members who poured their heart and soul into offering to help Benjaman, thank you for your efforts. Do not let this case and outcome discourage you from helping others. Web Sleuths, this is about finding the truth. In this case, I believe we have done just that. We have so many people on this forum who need your skills, your sleuthing abilities, and your kindness to help them with their situations. Your excellent work proves you can do just that.
Wait, and who said that?
Trisha.
Oh, okay. For a second, I thought it was
Nope.
the main person or the president who was quoted or whatever.
No, he just had that one.
And then I was like, wow.
No.
Really really congratulating these web sleuths.
No, it's all her.
Okay.
Trisha had told The Guardian that she had little choice but to draw the conclusions she did because of Kyle's refusal to release his medical records, his sudden silence, and most of all by what she was told by Richmond Hill Police. Kyle tried to say that Memorial Hospital wanted to charge $800 to release his records, which he obviously wouldn't be able to afford. Trisha also had an email from Memorial Hospital rep that stated that Kyle was given his full records no charge.
Right, I'm pretty sure you can get your records.
Apparently, though, while the guy who's doing the interview for The Guardian is telling Kyle about the conversations he's having with all these other people.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kyle just sends him the medical records. Like, here, have them. Here you go. Here. Some for you.
Are you going to keep going? Keep going.
Right here. Here you go. You're going to have these.
Oh, that's weird.
This is where it gets like, okay, it's very clear that the people who wrote these articles, I think, are arguing in defense of him.
Oh.
But I also understand where the contradictory is coming from with the other people who are, you know, upset with him
Yeah.
and feel like
put all this time and effort in for it to
Correct.
just kind of.
Yeah. Which, again, I'll share my thoughts at the end. So here's like the gist of what those medical records said. A neuropsychologist from Atlanta named Jason King also administered a battery of psychological tests, including one that showed Kyle ranked in the 95th percentile of a verbal IQ, which is normal, or maybe even high normal.
Okay.
King concluded that Kyle was suffering from dissociative amnesia, a form of memory loss brought about by trauma-related stress. Who was it? The schizophrenia diagnosis he had.
Right.
I don't think it stayed. Like, he was only taking that medication for like 6 months.
That still seems like a really long time to be taking like a really heavy
Yes, but
antipsychotic.
by now it's 2010.
Right.
So
but still.
being years ago.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when he saw another doctor who was like, I don't think you actually have schizophrenia, he stopped taking it.
Okay.
And so there's a part of the conversation where he asks him if he was worried to release it because the schizophrenia diagnosis is in there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was worried about the stigma.
Mm-hmm.
And he said yes without saying yes. You know, that's at least what it seemed to me.
Or was he saying yes because that's the that's an explanation someone provided? And he's like, oh, yeah, that was it.
Well, it was hard to tell because he didn't directly answer the question. So that's why I'm saying I think he said yes. I'm not really sure what he was trying to say because he didn't answer the question. So that was from this psychological guy did these tests, and he's officially diagnosing him with this dissociative amnesia. This King guy also said at one point in another article that, like, he very much believes that he cannot remember.
Okay.
And so whether or not he could or not, he has convinced himself of that.
Mm-hmm.
So it doesn't really matter what other people say because in his mind, there is no changing it. He cannot remember.
Right.
And, you know, self-fulfilling prophecy at that point.
Yep.
So also, the producers from Dr. Phil wanted to vet Kyle's story to determine if he was faking. So Harold Kopis, a former FBI agent turned private detective, spent several months interviewing Kyle, as well as the Burger King employee who found him, the EMTs who treated him, and the nurses who cared for him. Kopis also ran a background check on Benjaman Kyle and any variations. Quote,
Benjamin.
Benjamin. Quote, the producers trusted me, said Kopis. They knew, quite frankly, I would smell bullshit a mile away. He concluded that he was 90% sure that Kyle was telling the truth. I don't think anyone could say that they were 100%.
Yeah.
Forsyth contacted the Richmond Hill chief of police, but got no answer. He eventually got in contact with the officer who actually spoke with the web sleuth member that had alleged that they were given the suggestion that Kyle was conscious and uncooperative when found.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
information gets crossed because the Forsyth guy read to the officer the quote from Kopis about stating unequivocally that Kyle was not found conscious.
Mm-hmm.
And the officer replies, not conscious, yes, sir. But apparently there's some hesitation noticed. Forsyth clarifies, unable to speak. The officer says, unable to speak, yes. So some reports say that he was still unconscious when they took him to the hospital. Some say he was conscious, but he was still very dazed, confused, not alert, couldn't tell you what's going on, didn't know up from down, that kind of thing.
Right.
This guy's point, at least from what I'm gathering, is that this web sleuth person is saying, oh, I talked to this officer who was there. This guy happens to be able to talk to the same officer. And he's like, yeah, no, he wasn't conscious. But she's saying he was.
Right.
And so who's misleading who at this point?
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's all getting messy.
Yes. I mean, that's what happens over years.
Absolutely. After leaving Slater's, Kyle began walking south towards Florida. He made it
just towards Florida.
You remember he's in Georgia. Now, granted,
Right.
I know it's not a short distance, but he's at least in Georgia.
Okay, so we're just like, I'm going to go south. I'm going to go to Florida.
Yep, that's just where he decides to go, I guess.
Okay.
He made it only a few miles before he was stopped by two Georgia sheriff deputies who recognized him from Bo Preston's training on the FBI database.
Wow.
They offered to give him a ride to the Florida border. When they arrived, he got out and continued walking. So again, he only is surviving because
Everyone
people
else
want to help him.
Right.
When he got to Jacksonville, Kyle tried to enter a homeless shelter. But lacking a social security number, he was turned away and wound up sleeping in a field behind the sheriff's office. Desperate, he called John Wickstrom, a 21-year-old film student from Florida State University who had contacted him about making a documentary about his case. Kyle told Wickstrom that he had moved to Jacksonville because Slater needed to take care of her sick parents.
Mm-hmm.
One of the articles does try to address that with him.
Yeah.
And be like, so that's what you're saying happened? He's like, yeah. And then they're like, is that what she would say? And he goes, I don't know what she would say. And it's like, okay.
I'm a little suspicious here, sir.
I also feel like some of the things he does are out of embarrassment, but he doesn't handle it properly.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like...
Well, I mean, there's that lack of the emotional...
intelligence.
Yes.
Which is what the biggest problem is that he doesn't know how to pretty much say thank you.
Yeah.
Wickstrom, seeking to help, called a local TV news station, which ran a short segment on Kyle. Josh Scrutt, the owner of Crazy Fish, a restaurant on the water, saw the report and, feeling sorry for Kyle, offered him a job washing dishes.
Of course.
Kyle, it turned out, had an encyclopedic knowledge of restaurant equipment.
Right.
How to work the grill, collaborate the deep fryer, store the pans, clean the equipment. He quickly became Scrutt's best employee, always working past his shift and never turning down a task. So that people-pleasing.
Yep.
By the time Kyle spoke with Matt Wolf in 2014, he had all but given up on the idea that his real identity could ever be found. He had made media appearances on CNN, BBC, ABC, NPR, CBS, any acronym you can think of.
Sir, though.
Fox News, The Guardian, and even Dr. Phil.
It's like you had all these opportunities. Well, one big opportunity with that one lady, and then you just kind of...
Well, I think it's also like a matter... So he'll come back to that later. But I think it was also like, how is it that he's been all over and nobody has recognized him?
Yeah.
Like, even with all the other stuff, I don't think like that even crossed his mind because the lack of emotional intelligence, like, you know, he's definitely, like I said, he's not good at saying thank you. He still received emails from people offering tips, but none of them had ever come to anything. A last-ditch visit to a psychic had yielded nothing useful. He had more or less resigned himself to remaining Benjaman Kyle. Despite his memory loss, he explained he had retained implicit sense of self as a person. The personality he had before the amnesia, likes, dislikes, habits, emotional architect, they all remained intact. He didn't know who he was, but he knew who he was.
Yep.
Politically, he was a diehard liberal. Thank God.
Oh.
Spiritually, he was a lapsed Catholic. Aren't they all? He suspected he had long worn a mustache and had almost always smoked, saying, quote, I'm pretty sure I stopped smoking once about 30 years ago. Then I took it up again last year and haven't been able to shake it. He hated physical contact and had a deep-seated love of movie theaters, tools, and science fiction novels. When asked if he ever wondered about his old life, what his old life was like, Kyle would wince and say, quote, everyone asks me, what if you did this? What if you did that? I don't do the what ifs. It's just a way of driving you nuts. Every once in a while, I'll go on the internet 2 or 3 days in a row. I'll start looking at pictures of Denver on Google Maps, the street view. After a while, I get fed up and leave it alone. Just frustrating, I guess. When asked what he thought it would be like to figure out who he was and be told about a life that he didn't recognize, Kyle said, quote, it would be like reading a book. When it happens, if it happens, I don't think it's going to be a fun process. I don't see how it could be anything but difficult. I've got 2 separate lives that have to merge into one. As far as personality-wise, I don't think they're going to figure out I'm an axe murderer. John Wickstrom, the documentarian, helped Kyle set up a website and a Facebook page, which quickly filled up with supportive messages. He also arranged for Kyle to appear on 2 Ask Me Anything interviews on Reddit, which received enough upvotes to land on the site's popular front page.
Wow.
The online community tried to crowdsource an answer to his identity, but like everyone else, they fell short.
Right.
After the documentary about Kyle came out, Wickstrom started an online petition to get Kyle a new social security card. It needed 25,000 signatures to receive a response from the White House, and it ended up with less than half. When I was on Reddit and reading it, he did comment, like there's 2 posts. He commented on the second one because people were like upset. And I can't remember.
With the lack of signatures?
No, with the misinformation they were getting, his lack of response and reaching out to people. And he had responded back to one of those people and they were like, dude, I think it's because you're not answering people and there's a lot of people trying to help you.
Right. Yeah.
And like, you're kind of being a dick about it.
Yeah.
Which is like where I think a lot of people had their issue and why when they say they don't believe him anymore, it's because they're hurt by how he treated them. Possibly.
And then, I mean, it could be, too, like, he keeps saying, like, oh, I want to find out who I am, but, oh, I don't want to find out who I am. Oh, you're going to help me? I'm going to leave. Like,
he has a lot of learned helplessness. Like,
yeah.
I don't know what I'm doing. You can just do it. And
yeah.
let
And
me know
then,
what you find.
we're getting really close to it. Oh, well, I don't really want to know. Like, I'm just going to go.
Well, we get to that right now. In February 2015, Colleen Fitzpatrick, the genetic genealogist, told a TV station in Atlanta that she wasn't sure Kyle actually wanted to figure out who he was.
Yeah, that's what it really sounds like.
It was the first time she had spoken publicly about the case since Kyle had cut her off. She said, quote, "If the mystery is ever solved, I think the story will go away and he won't get the time and attention from people. And he'll probably have some angry people that devoted a lot of time and effort to helping him when in the end, he's not a big executive. He's just a regular person. Or probably just a street person." I think she was getting a little snarky. She was bitter. Later on her website, Fitzpatrick asked why Kyle's supporters assumed he was trustworthy when he could be anyone. He could be a loving husband and father, but he could also be a drug dealer or a child molester or a member of the mafia. She wrote, "Of all the possibilities, should we assume the benign without ruling out the sinister?" A month later, Kyle posted a response on his Facebook page. In it, he claimed that he had stopped speaking to Fitzpatrick because she had denied him access to his own genealogical data and refused to share information with other researchers. He stated, quote, "For years, I felt that Colleen was exploiting me, the vulnerable nature of my memory loss, my lack of resources, and poverty. However, I felt helpless to respond. I now have found my voice." Fitzpatrick denied the accusations, but Kyle's supporters posted messages of encouragement on his Facebook wall, applauding his bravery. Among them was Cece Moore, another genealogist who had volunteered to work on Kyle's case. Her, Fitzpatrick,
don't like each other.
Don't like each other. There's like one article goes into the whole tiff, and I'm like, shots fired! It's insane.
All the drama.
So, it's great. With the aid of volunteers she called search angels, Moore often works on a dozen or so cases at one time. Like Fitzpatrick, Moore looks at genes on the Y chromosome, which travel down through each male generation. But she had also developed an expertise in autosomal DNA, which is inherited equally from both parents.
Oh.
Whereas Y testing shows only a single outermost branch of the family tree, autosomal DNA fills in branches from all over.
Oh, that's cool.
Once you have enough branches, you can begin to reverse engineer a tree. Several data matches seem to be closely related to a man named Abraham Lovely Powell, who had lived in the 19th century. Almost all of Kyle's ancestors came from Northern Europe, and his parental grandparents and great-grandparents probably came from the American South. The more she learned, the more confident she grew that she would find the missing puzzle pieces. In June 2015, Cece Moore called Matt Wolf and said, "We found him." Moore also told Wolf that she was worried because when she had called Kyle and told them news, he hung up quickly.
So he heard the news and then he hung up?
Yeah, because she called him and told him. And now he wasn't answering the phone, and she wasn't sure how he was taking the news. So Wolf calls, leave a message, because at this point, like, it's been a year that he's been talking with him and figuring out his story. So he's got a solid relationship with him.
Yeah.
About an hour later, Kyle calls back. He was breathing hard, and his voice definitely had climbed an octave. He's like, "I guess I'm in shock. I have so many thoughts running through my head about how I'm going to handle this. I don't know. I seem to be having a hard time focusing."
I mean, I get that.
Yeah. So the final clue surfaced as a result of Cece Moore's feud with Colleen Fitzpatrick.
Oh.
So highly recommend you go check it out because it's insane. One is like, "You're trying to steal my work." And she's like, "Why aren't you collaborating?" Me. You're not sure whose side you're on.
There's a lot of that recently.
Correct. So a genealogist, another one, in South Carolina, who was actually a member of the Powell family, had seen a post about the quarrel on Facebook, and she reached out to Moore. She happened to be on her way to a family reunion where, at Moore's request, she took several DNA samples from distant cousins.
"Hi, can I take your DNA real quick, please?"
The samples helped Moore fill in several missing branches in Kyle's genetic family tree.
Whoa.
One of Moore's volunteers actually noticed a mistake in the family tree. So one of the great-grandsons in the Powell family had been misidentified when they tracked down the correct one, and it turned out he had died in Indiana. And while most Powells were Protestant, he was Catholic. Moore finally found a photo from the 1967 yearbook from Jefferson High School in Lafayette, Indiana, of a teenager who was hidden behind big, black, plastic-rimmed glasses.
Like what I'm wearing.
Exactly. His crinkly-eyed smile and lantern jaw were unmistakable. And his name? William Burgess Powell. Kyle Powell, it appeared, had been right about almost everything other than his name.
Wow.
William was the second son of Furman and Marjorie Powell. He had been born in Lafayette, which is about an hour north of Indianapolis. As a child, he attended Catholic school. His father had died in a boating accident in 1969, his mother from cancer in 1996.
Aww.
He did have three brothers, Furman Jr., Thomas, and Robert. Thomas had died young, but Furman Jr. and Robert were still alive. Robert, the youngest, lived in Florida.
Interesting.
Right? While Furman, the oldest, still lived in the family's house in Lafayette. Over the next several days, as Kyle, I'm going to start calling him Powell now.
Okay.
And Wolf continued talking about all the new information coming in about his life. Powell still didn't remember anything, but he was clearly excited. He sounded more animated than ever before.
Wow.
His birthday, Moore had gone deeper into records, and William Burgess Powell was, in fact, born on August 29th, 1948.
Wow.
They weren't sure. Like, they thought, oh, no, it's actually 51. And he was like, well, I trust her, so if that's what she says I am. And then they looked a little bit more like, oh, no, my mistake.
You're right.
And he was super excited about it. He said, quote, I'm so relieved. That was one of the things I clung on to keep my sanity. His breath caught on the phone, and he was quiet for a while, and it sounded like he was crying. He said, quote, these little facts that I knew were right. The Powell House in Lafayette is a sturdy two-story Queen Anne built in 1880 that has fallen into spectacular decline. His brother Furman was still living there, and he met with Matt Wolfe to fill in the details of the Powell family. His father, Furman Sr., was from Honea Path, South Carolina, and had served as a flight engineer on B-24s in the Second World War. His mother, Marjorie, had been employed by the Navy Air Corps as a photographer. They had met when they were both stationed in Boise, Ohio, Iowa, and decided to...
Iowa?
Yep. Mm-hmm. And decided to move to Lafayette, where she had family. The Powell household had been irritable and frightening. Marjorie's mother had a hoarding problem, filling closets with unworn clothes and porcelain angels. Furman Sr. was a quiet, angry man who drank a lot. He seldom spoke of his military service, but Furman Jr. suspected that today he would probably be diagnosed with PTSD.
Yeah, they were never back then.
Correct. Beginning in early adolescence, William, his mother's favorite, became the target of his father's wrath. Furman declined to describe the specifics of the abuse other than to say that it was regular and brutal. He told Wolfe, quote, let the dead bury the dead.
Oh.
It seemed possible, though, that such sustained abuse could have primed William for dissociative amnesia. When William turned 16, he left home to live with another family across town.
Just like a random family? Like not his family. Like
correct.
Okay.
Yeah. For several years, William held odd jobs in Lafayette. Janitor at a strip club, loader in a warehouse of a factory, handyman at a movie theater. In 1973, when he was 25, he moved into a mobile home a few miles north of Lafayette on a property owned by a family named Richardson. Powell ate dinner with the family every night, but otherwise he spent most of his time alone reading and listening to music.
That's cute, though.
Right? Then in 1976, Powell disappeared. After he missed dinner one night, one of the Richardson children checked in his trailer. In it, he found all of Powell's things, stereo tools, books, but no Powell. A few days later, his car, a red 66 Rambler station wagon, was discovered abandoned several miles upriver near the Oakdale Dam. Powell's family feared the worst. Furman filed a missing persons report with the state police. The police, however, quickly located Powell. He was living in Boulder, Colorado, working as a cook at a family restaurant called Azar's.
Oh, where the horrible service was.
Yep, Azar's was the restaurant Powell had remembered as having bad service. He was a bit disappointed to learn he had been the cook there. That food wasn't very good, he had told Wolfe.
Oh, that's really funny.
Puzzled, Furman sent him letters, but William never responded. For years, no one heard from him. Their mother, Furman said, never got over the loss of her favorite son. After she died in 1996, Furman and Robert settled her estate, and Furman asked a friend in Army intelligence to run a background check on his brother to see if he could be contacted. To his surprise, there appeared to be no record of William Powell, no phone number, no address. It was as if he never existed. When Furman had last seen William, he had been a heavy smoker and a heavy drinker. Furman slowly resigned himself to the idea that his brother was dead.
Yeah.
So, why did he disappear? No one seems to know. According to the missing persons report that Furman had filed with the police, Powell had been working at a movie theater in downtown Lafayette before he left for Colorado. The report stated that he had last been seen in Lafayette in the company of Charles Chico Gotez, a coworker. The decision to leave Indiana had been impulsive. One Sunday night, after several hours of drinking, Gotez proposed that they move to Boulder. Powell had recently received a small settlement from a previous employer after he slipped on an icy dock and broke his arm.
Oh.
But he agreed. They packed a few possessions into Gotez's Toyota Celica, and they drove through the night and into the next day across Illinois, Missouri, and the vast cornfields of Kansas. When asked why Boulder, Gotez said, quote, because it wasn't Indiana. Feel that. In Colorado, they worked at fast food restaurants. Gotez stayed for a year, then returned to Lafayette. Powell remained in Colorado. Despite much effort, Wolfe couldn't find anyone in Colorado who knew William Powell or Benjaman Kyle, or anyone matching his description. The restaurants where he worked had closed years ago, and their employment records were lost. The last time Gotez saw Powell was in 1977 when he visited Boulder and stayed for a month in Powell's unfurnished one-bedroom apartment. Powell was living alone and didn't appear to have many friends. Before Gotez left, Powell told him to take care of his set of mechanics tools back in Lafayette. He said, quote, keep these for me. One day I'm going to want them back. What had he been doing for nearly 30 years between the time that Gotez saw him in Colorado to when he was found naked and unconscious outside of Burger King?
Right.
When Powell had fled Indiana, he had cut off most of his remaining ties of an already very isolated life. After Gotez left him in Boulder, he was absolutely alone.
Mm-hmm.
And according to the earning records filed with Social Security Administration, he worked at several restaurants in Denver from 1978 to 83. But after that, no income is reported for William Powell. Until 2004, there is no record of his existence.
Between what years there's no record?
1983 and 2004.
Jeez.
When searching through public records, Wolf found none of the documents that the average adult accumulates in middle age. No address, phone number, traffic tickets, lawsuits, loans, marriage certificates, or even divorce proceedings. After he received the phone call from C.C. Moore, Powell spent the next few months working to restore his old identity. So the only thing that we can't answer is, well, we kind of know why he ran away. But that 20-year window, he has no idea.
And like what happened to cause him to lose his memory?
Yeah, he has no idea why he left Colorado and how he ended up in Georgia and everything that happened between 1983 and 2004.
And so do we still not know why? Maybe you'll get
As far as I know.
We still don't know how he lost his memory?
Nope.
What the heck?
Nope. They think it's the trauma from the abuse he suffered as a kid.
Yeah, but I feel like that was so long ago.
Well, if you think about when he first lost his, like the part of, like the 1983 to 2004, not only does he have no memory, there's no record of him anywhere.
Right.
So no one can even fill in that blank of why he left in 1983, what he did for 20 years, and how he eventually got to Georgia and passed out and naked.
Right.
Like no one can tell him and he doesn't remember. So like that is always going to remain the biggest question mark.
Mm-hmm.
We know why he left Indiana.
Yeah.
It's just kind of everything after that we're not really sure.
Yeah, and I want to know why he lost his memory. Like what, like yeah, it could be the abuse when he was younger, but what was like that, like the switch flipping that caused it? You
like
know
the
what
triggering
I mean?
event?
Yes.
So when people are in fugue states, which I'll get to later, it's mentioned that like they may never have the memory of what triggered them to go into it.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it can last 20 years, but the thinking, at least from the guy who wrote the article, is that he's never going to be able to remember what triggered him to get into that state of mind. And he was possibly in that state for those 20 years until he ended up at Burger King.
Jeez.
So that's the idea. But he's trying to work to get his life back on track. Gets a birth certificate, social security card. He begins talking to his brother on the phone. He found it weird hearing his own voice coming over the line. His other brother, Robert, didn't respond to his emails.
That's sad.
Yeah. In October 2015, Powell, in the company of a documentary crew for a reality television series, flew to Lafayette to reunite with Furman for the first time since he had left Boulder in 1976. Left for Boulder in 1976. Despite his aversion to being touched, when Powell saw his brother, they hugged.
No.
For several days, Powell went around meeting disbelieving cousins and collecting stories about himself. They called him Bill, which he was still getting used to. But he recognized none of them, and he took their recollections with a grain of salt. He told Wolf, quote, "They're telling me something filtered through 50 years of memories, and God knows what changes.
Yeah.
Anyway, I know who I am as a person. I don't think that's changed. I said all along I wasn't an axe murderer, and so far I've heard nothing to contradict that." A cousin, the family historian, gave Powell a copy of his family tree, and he discovered that he liked running his fingers over the lineage. He explained, quote, "It's the idea of looking at all the names, knowing that I'm descended from all these people. I have history now."
Aw.
2 months later, at the end of 2015, Powell decided to move back to Indiana. Furman, he feared, was becoming increasingly frail and couldn't take care of the house alone. Powell packed all his possessions into a moving truck paid for by the reality TV producers. He found a little 2-bedroom house in a working-class neighborhood of Lafayette, a 5-minute bike ride from his childhood home. As the weeks passed, he made friends with neighbors, fixing their appliances, feeding treats to their dogs, but he told no one of his past. He saw Furman a few times a week, but had yet to go inside his childhood home. Whatever had taken place there, whatever caused him to flee home at age 16, to cut all ties with his family, to throw away his very name, remained too painful to confront.
Valid.
Powell feared that more memories from before, meaning before whatever happened, could start returning once he settled down in Lafayette. Quote, I'm worried about what the memories will be when they come back, he told Wolf. Personal memories encoded during a fugue state are generally never recovered. Powell may never remember his 20 years that have gone missing. Perhaps he had adopted another name and lived out another life for 2 decades, one in which he was called Benjaman.
Right.
Powell told Wolf, quote, I think it's obvious I did that. I don't think I made it up out of thin air. It could be that I was going from job to job for a long time. Restaurant jobs are a dime a dozen, so I'm guessing I might have done that. When asked why he picked the name Benjaman, he thought for a minute. Finally, he said, I read somewhere that it comes from Old Hebrew. It means beloved son.
Oh.
In conclusion, to a long story,
Very long story.
Matt Wolf concludes this story best. Quote, "We may never know the life Howell lived in those missing years. He may have been homeless or irritant, taking odd jobs, getting paid off the books. He may have lived off the grid, hewing out an existence in the deep woods. It seems likely he made few acquaintances, earned little money, committed no crimes, claimed no benefits. At some juncture, from an official standpoint, William Burgess Powell ceased to be a person of interest. And that, ultimately, is what allowed him to slip into anonymity. Because for all of our unparalleled ability to see and be seen, we do not bother to keep track of those who, to our eyes, don't matter." And that's his story.
Wow.
So he knows who he is now, but there's still a lot of...
20 years of mystery.
And, like, he doesn't sound like a very sherry guy.
No.
And so... there's obviously still a lot of unanswered questions. Like, why'd you cut off all your family?
Yeah.
Like, is there a reason that the brother's not responding to you?
Mhm.
Did something happen?
Did he remember something that you don't?
Correct.
Like, yeah, did you do something?
And the other brother didn't say anything about, like, it seemed like the other brother was confused as to why he cut off contact. Because he tried to reach out to Kyle in Colorado, but Kyle didn't respond. Or Powell. So, I think the things that happened are true. I do think it's more trauma than it is physical.
Yeah.
I think that information got misconstrued that he wasn't good about correcting. And therefore, when it was discovered that it wasn't true, it definitely did not help and made it look like he was making everything up.
Right.
I think his lack of shown appreciation to the people that really put in time to help him made them angry enough to be like, is this even real? Are you just using me?
Right.
Which is completely fair.
No, absolutely.
So in terms of the amnesia part, you know, maybe there was a point at where it all came back, but he felt like he was in too deep and couldn't, you know, who knows? I mean, a lot of people,
Is he still alive?
Yeah. Everyone who talked to him, you know, would always say like they were looking for something that would give a clue to him being disingenuous.
Yeah.
And they couldn't really find anything, especially because his personality seems a little quirky too.
Right.
So we know who he is. That's mystery is solved, but there's still a giant one of what the fuck happened to him in 20 years.
Right. Like
So,
20 years is a long
It's a
chunk
long
of
time. It is a long time.
Like, did you have a family?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Like, what were you doing?
Exactly.
And like, you can still have a family and not have any marriage records, you know?
Well, and one of the first things he mentioned to the nurse when he was still dazed and confused was that he'd been in the woods for 17 years.
Right. I remember you saying that.
And so I'm like, does that have something to do with it? Did he have like some sort of like breakdown and go away for 20 years? Like a psychological break of some kind? Get lost in the woods for 20 years? I feel like that's more possible than anything else.
Yeah.
So, and it was also like the 70s when he went missing. And so by the time the technological age came in, he was off the grid.
Right.
So I think that's also part of the reason why there's no record of him anywhere else.
That's so wild.
Yeah. So there's still a lot of questions and a lot that's not been solved and
probably never will be.
Never will be. Unless someone happens to see him. He's like, oh yeah, he was here in 1994.
Right.
Or whatever. But that's also what's crazy to me and that's what I like don't understand is how can you be everywhere and nobody, not even your brothers who clearly, like one clearly missed you.
Yeah.
And he never recognized you when you were on TV.
Right. Right.
I mean,
that's a good point.
The last time he saw him was 1976.
Yeah, but still.
Like, I don't know. I thought that part was weird. I didn't understand that.
Yeah, that is weird.
Why is no one looking for you?
Because I was wondering that too. I was like, if you're on TV so many times, the only like conclusion I could come up with is that like your whole family died.
Right.
You know, and that's why no one knows who you are.
And it's like, why is no one looking for you? When clearly later on, he's like, oh yeah, I have like 50 cousins and I have this huge family tree and all this stuff. And so I'm like, not a single one of them saw anything you were in and had any sort of like, oh, I wonder if that's, like, that's crazy to me. Like that I don't understand. I feel like that's also a huge question.
If he went missing from such a young age, maybe people just didn't know about him.
Well, yeah, I'm sure at some point, yes, there are definitely ones that do because he would have been 30 in his 30s when he not only disappeared, but also doesn't remember.
Yeah.
Which is why he would say like, oh, I expected to see someone who was 30.
Yeah.
50.
Right.
And so 20 years, I mean, people obviously can change a lot in 20 years. I don't know. I just feel like if your brother was missing and you're seeing this guy who's, even if you're not sure if he is, I would at the very least check it out to see if maybe.
Right.
But no one did that until others reached out and
Yeah.
things like that. But that part was like, I don't understand.
It makes you wonder what happened with the family, too.
Right.
Mhm.
Like, that's also a big question.
Yeah,
Like,
because maybe there was a falling out, so he didn't really go missing. He just left.
right.
And so if you leave and there was a big fallout, no one's going to look for you because
Right.
you left,
Right.
you know?
Exactly. So,
Well, that was wild.
yeah.
It was very interesting.
Yeah. Sorry it was so long, but everything I was like, I'm truly only keeping in the important information. It's just a lot.
But nice job. Nicely told.
Thank you. It was hard because I didn't know.
bet it was.
I was like, how do I tell his story? Do I
Yes.
tell it in the order that the media found out, that he finds out, or do I tell what we already know? Like, oh my God, it was so hard.
Yeah.
So hard to decide.
And especially when you have this 20-year gap where you're like, I don't know.
Something happened there.
Something happened.
Don't know what it was. So we're just going to move past that.
Well, nicely done.
Yeah.
Nicely told.
Yeah. But
Love it.
hopefully, worth time.
Yeah. Very interesting.
Awesome. Cool.
Nicely done.
Thank you. Thank you. What spooky tea upon, Lauren?
So I also have a disappearance, but this one, no one gets found.
So yours does have murder.
We don't know
Okay.
because it's a disappearance.
Right.
So
I'm bad.
this is the disappearance of Justin Gaines.
Like Chip and Joanna Gaines, but Justin?
Sure.
You don't know who that is, do you?
They do houses.
Good job.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yes. Aren't they getting a divorce?
God, I hope not.
Oh, maybe they're not. Maybe that's another home improvement couple.
There is a home improvement couple that got a divorce, and he's getting another divorce.
Oh, sir, you are the problem. Okay, so on November 1st, 2007, 18-year-old Justin
Oh
Glenn...
my God, these are like right around each other. It's crazy.
Yeah. Justin Glenn Gaines did what he typically did on a Thursday night. He planned to hit up Wild Bill's, a nightclub off of Pleasant Hill Road in Duluth, Georgia. Justin was born in Westlake, Ohio, and was the second oldest of 8 siblings.
Damn!
I know. When he was 6, he and his family moved to Snellville, Georgia. He was a freshman at the Oconee campus of Gainesville College in Athens, Georgia, now the University of North Georgia. One of the reasons Justin chose this school was because it kept him close to where his family and friends were.
Can't relate.
And a little bit about him, he loved to play games, go swimming, and go exploring. His family loved camping and taking trips to Myrtle Beach. They always had a good time together, and they were a very close family. So that night, his roommate, back in college, well, I think they lived off campus, but so that night, his roommate, Chris Byers, and Justin planned to go to the club. Justin and Chris were both visiting home in Snellville, so they were staying at their parents'. Justin dropped Chris off at Chris's girlfriend's house and headed to his parents' house to get ready for the night. When Chris and his girlfriend were finished getting ready, they hopped into Chris's girlfriend's dad's car.
Jesus.
I know. I had so many apostrophes and S's. And... So they were borrowing the car for the night, and they headed over to Justin's to pick him up. On their way to the bar, they swung by a Quick Trip on 5 Forks Trickham Road. I guess it's just like a convenience store.
Yeah, like a 7-Eleven.
Like a gas station kind of thing,
Yeah.
So Justin heads inside and buys himself a 52-ounce fountain drink that he filled up 2/3 of the way with Rooster Booster energy drink.
Nice.
Back in the car, he filled the rest of his cup with some bottom shelf vodka. He did have a reputation of being quite the partier. It took the group 15 minutes to get to the bar from Quick Trip, and in that time frame, Justin finished most of his drink.
Damn.
So he wouldn't be able to buy drinks at the bar as he was only 18, so he needed something beforehand.
Don't we all?
Yes.
We all did it.
We all do that now, too, when we can drink at the bar.
Correct. We pregame even when we're of legal age.
Yes.
But that's because of money.
You gotta save money. So the 3 arrived shortly after 11 p.m. and head to the VIP entrance line, but they missed the 11 p.m. cutoff, so they would now have to pay $10 to get inside.
So I'm sorry, pause. They are just getting to the bar.
At 11 p.m. I know.
When my cousin invited me to her birthday, like recently, she was like, yeah, our pregame's going to start at 9. I was like, start at 9?
Ma'am, I want to be in bed by 9.
She's like, yeah, like we'll go out to the bars 10:45, 11. I was like, we're going to start the night at 11? That's bedtime.
That's so late.
I was like, you got me for the pregame. I am not going to make it out.
No, at this age.
No.
At this age. So they missed the 11 p.m. cutoff, so they would now have to pay $10 to get inside.
Ooh.
Well, none of them wanted to pay that much, but what you gonna do? So Justin did get lucky, though, and found someone who gave him a guest pass, so he got in for free.
This reminds me of BT's VIP card.
Yeah, a little bit. So his 2 friends who he had come with weren't so lucky, so they actually decided to just head home. It was a busy night.
For $10?
College.
That's true. You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't even like paying a $10 cover now.
Well, yeah, I know, but I've also been places that try to charge 20. So in
Oh my
my
God,
mind,
I know.
10 is not bad.
Pocket change.
Pocket change.
So it was a busy night at the bar. This bar could hold 3,700 patrons. I know.
It just became so uncomfortable.
I know. And it was Thirsty Thursday.
Ooh.
So and like capital Thirsty Thursday. Like that's what the name of this night was at the bar.
Oh, yeah. We had Thirsty Thursdays.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like, you know.
Ladies' Night Tuesdays. Thirsty Thursday.
Yeah.
Thursdays.
Thursdays.
Something was on Wednesday, I'm sure.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the music at the bar was typically country, but on Thirsty Thursday, a DJ came in and played hip hop and dance music. So it was one of those bars where you had to be 18 to enter, but 21 to actually drink and buy alcohol.
Okay. Yeah. Even after a certain time.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Because some bars, after a certain time, they don't.
It's just 21.
Yeah.
Yep. Nope.
Okay.
At this one, 18 to enter, 21 to drink.
Okay.
Justin was known to have 2 fake IDs, both making him over 21, and both that he would use to buy his alcohol. So on this particular night, he was using his ID with the name Brad Allen on it. He had another ID that used the name Shawi or Shiwi. What?
I have a funny story. When I visited my cousin in Michigan, we stopped to get food for the night. Like we were out all night, stopped to get food. It was this little hole in the wall. We're leaving and someone is shouting about a license that they have found. And they were saying something like Brian or whatever. And he was like, oh, my middle name's Brian. I was like, no, it's not. That's not you. Let's go.
It was his.
The next morning, he was like, I can't find my ID.
Oh,
I
no.
was like, what's your middle name, Josh? And he goes, Brian. I was like, oh, shit. I know what it is.
Your fault. 100%.
100%.
It's not your middle name. Let's go.
Well, and the fact that he listened to me too.
I know. Oh, yeah, you're right. It's not. Let's go.
He was very drunk and younger, so of course he was going to listen to me.
Okay, so
Charmin, something ID.
Yeah. So because Chris and his girlfriend hadn't been able to get in, like I said, they told Justin that they were going to head out.
Okay.
So he, again, went in. They left. He said he wanted to stay, so he told them that he would find a ride home later, no worries. And Justin was a social guy. His mom said that he could walk up to a stranger and hold a conversation for an hour easily.
Same.
Yeah, exactly. So you know the type.
Mm-hmm.
So around 1:30 p.m., technically we're November 2nd, he was ready to leave and was trying to find a ride to his parents' home back in Snellville, as he didn't have his wallet or his car with him. Duluth to Snellville is about a 30-minute drive. He made several calls to friends asking them for a ride. The first call he made was to his ex-girlfriend, Cassidy Kohler. Listen. They had dated back in high school and had recently broken up but had remained cordial. So cordial to the point that they would still chat with each other on the phone, like they had done just earlier that night before Justin headed out to the bars.
Okay, they're not over yet and willing to let go.
Yeah.
Yeah. They're still close.
Yeah. But Cassidy didn't answer his 1 a.m. phone call. She was sleeping as she had an early class the next morning because it's Thursday and people have things on Friday.
Correct.
He then called his friend Clint Irvin, who he had hung out with earlier that night at Wild Bill's. So he and Clint had perused the dance floor together, but Clint had headed out early that night as he had an appointment the next morning. So he wasn't planning on getting, like, messed up.
Yeah.
And Justin was like, Thursday.
Yeah.
So when Justin called him at 1 a.m., he also didn't answer. So Clint was actually almost home when he got Justin's call, but didn't want to have to turn around, especially with his early morning coming up. And he's already close to his house, so it would have been a 30-minute drive back, 30 minutes. Yeah. So
do not blame him.
He's like, no.
No.
So Justin ended up leaving a voicemail for Clint, but according to him, it was all static and, quote, a long message of nothing. Justin called him one final time at 1:58 a.m.
This is before Uber and all that kind of good stuff.
Right.
Damn.
Exactly. So he called Michael Puga, an old football teammate from their freshman days at Brookwood High School. Puga didn't answer the 2 calls that Justin had made as he was also sleeping.
Because it's fucking 2 a.m.
Right.
On a weekday.
And his friend had just worked a 12-hour shift delivering pizza.
Woo.
So he was sleeping.
Yeah.
Between 12:55 a.m. and 2 a.m., Justin made 24 calls to 11 different people.
Is this cell phone or payphone?
I think it's cell phone.
Okay.
Because it's
2007.
2007. Yeah, definitely would have been cell phones.
Yeah.
Because I had a cell phone. It didn't take pictures. And I don't think I could text on it, but I had a cell phone in 2007.
Well, because I was thinking too, like if the guy decided not to answer, then there must have been caller ID.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. I did not look that much into it.
You didn't have to. I'm just trying to gauge the
where we are,
the appliances that we can own.
So most of those who he did call didn't answer, but those who did said they just weren't able to pick him up.
Mm-hmm.
Justin's parents, Erica Wilson and Stephen Wilson, had always told him that no matter what time, if he needed a ride, he could call them, but that night he never did.
Oh, wow.
Justin also had some money, but never called a taxi.
Okay, yeah.
And there were also several hotels in the area, but Justin never even so much as walked towards them.
Did he have enough money to do that?
I don't know.
Hmm.
His phone was used for the last time right at 2 a.m. when he had called Chris. Chris had also said that he didn't want to wake up his girlfriend and especially didn't want to have to wake her up to wake up her dad to ask to use the car again.
Right, because it's not their car.
Right.
Yeah.
So he's like, I can't. So that's
Yeah.
what he said no. Justin never arrived home that night, and a surveillance camera video would be the last time that he was ever seen or heard from.
Wow.
When he failed to return home that night, his mother, that night into the next morning.
Yeah.
His mother wasn't immediately worried. She thought that maybe he was still hanging out with friends.
Mhm.
But when Saturday came around and Justin still hadn't come home or returned any calls, she started to think something might be wrong. So this was especially paired with the fact that Justin was offered to help his stepdad, Steven, with cleaning gutters on Saturday morning.
Mhm.
And that would mean that Justin would be getting $150 for the work. So something that he absolutely gladly accepted to do.
For sure.
And he had told Steven, his dad, that he would. And he wasn't one to let his stepdad, his stepfather down, especially after agreeing to do something. So he made the plan like, yeah, I'll be there Saturday morning. I'll absolutely help you. So when he didn't show up, they're like, this is not him.
Yeah.
Erica started calling Justin's friends to see if any of them had heard from him. They hadn't, but they told her not to worry. In, quote, in my mom heart, I just knew that something wasn't right, Erica said. I assumed it was around this time that she decided to call the authorities and report Justin as missing. So the weekend passed, and by Monday, November 5th, Justin's friends started to call Erica, asking if she had gotten in touch with him because they were now starting to worry.
Good for them.
Yeah. Justin was even supposed to pick up Chris and give him a ride to school that morning, but he never showed up.
Do you know how far school is from where he lives?
No, I don't. So Erica was starting to get extremely worried at this point, especially considering the fact that Justin's wallet, card, and ID were all sitting at her house.
Yeah,
Because
he didn't even bring his wallet.
I don't know. I mean, maybe he didn't need it. He just had his fake ID. And
I mean, guys are weird about what they can just carry
are.
around in their pockets.
They are. So, he didn't really bring anything.
Yeah. I wonder, he probably had to use cash if he's using a fake ID because the car's not going to be in his name.
Right. Probably, yeah. So all you would need is your fake ID and your cash.
Yeah.
So Erica had access to Justin's school portal, so she signed in to see if there was anything there that would give her a clue or if there had been any activity on his account. This is when she saw that Justin hadn't turned in an assignment that was due that day. And she knew that Justin was adamant about turning in work on time, so missing a due date was completely out of character for
Like, he
him.
might like to party, but he's not a slacker.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He likes to party, but he also wants to get his education, graduate. So that day, friends and family gathered at the Wilsons' household to start passing out missing persons flyers. They drove around the area surrounding Wild Bill's. They even checked dumpsters. As the week progressed, the search party grew. They had maps and even a command center, but there was still no sign of Justin. The Gwinnett County Police Department and 200 volunteers combed the area, both from the ground and the air. Tim Miller, the Texas EquiSearch, who we have talked about before, Texas EquiSearch.
We have?
EquiSearch? Yeah, one of our stories, we talked about him.
Okay.
So he arrived in Georgia to help search for Justin. So the reason he was so involved was his 16-year-old daughter, Laura Miller, had been brutally murdered in 1984. And so I guess he joined this to kind of help. The Georgia State Defense Force, a group of trained citizen searchers, joined as well and started using aerial photos to expand the search. Missing persons billboards started appearing on I-85, and the searches spread far, mainly focusing on public parks, reservoirs, electrical company properties, banks of lakes, roadside ditches, kind of any place someone could be.
Yeah.
And the search continued to grow with off-duty firemen, deputies, people who were unemployed, and even, everyone's joining in to try to find Justin. But even with all of this manpower, there were no signs of him. The authorities started talking to witnesses and seeing what information they could gather about his disappearance. Those who were at the bar that night stated that Justin appeared to be either intoxicated or under the influence of drugs, and that he may have gotten into an altercation of some sort with another patron of the club. One witness told authorities that they saw Justin waiting outside of the bar at 2:30 a.m., appearing as though he were waiting for a ride. But it's again said that all who he called declined, so who would he have been waiting for? Another person called an anonymous tip line just days after the disappearance. A woman, possibly middle-aged, possibly a mother. She said that there was a man who lived near the intersection of Pleasant Hill Road and Club Drive, right where the club is. She believed he is involved in Justin's case. Police urged her to come forward, but she never did. And with the case taking over the news and TV, Eric and Steven were being asked for interview after interview. They spoke with Greta Van Susteren and Star Jones, just to name a few. That means nothing to us, but they're big TV people.
Okay.
Then an issue from June 2007, just a few months before Justin's disappearance, was brought up. So back in June of 2007, Justin had been arrested after police found him passed out drunk in his car. There was an open bottle of vodka in the vehicle with him, as well as false identification. So he had been charged with possession of alcohol by a minor, second-degree forgery, and having an open container of alcohol. His court hearing was scheduled for November 21st, so 19 days after his disappearance, and he never showed up for it.
Because he's missing November 2nd.
Right.
Yeah.
But they were hoping maybe he would come back for it.
Yeah.
His parents were aware of the upcoming court date and the charges against him, but they didn't believe that this court case is related to his disappearance at all. They knew, He knew what he had done. He knew he was going to court.
Yeah, he was going to own up to it.
His parents were there supporting him. Like,
Yeah,
he had
yeah.
no reason to not follow
Right,
through with it.
right.
In February of 2008, police announced that they had come to the conclusion that foul play had to be involved in Justin's case.
Yeah.
He was listed as missing at this point, most likely because adults do have the right to disappear voluntarily.
Sure.
And there is still a chance that he could show back up. So there was nothing to say otherwise. Like, they don't have a body. They have no reason to say that he's dead.
Yeah.
So that's why he was listed as missing, not dead.
Correct.
Just a few months later, in August of 2008, the investigation for Justin was suspended as no new leads had surfaced.
Oh, wow.
Devastated that the investigation had been called off and suspended, Erica Wilson, Justin's mom, hired a private investigator named Bob Poulnot. I know. Some people's names. Or Poulnot, I don't really know. But Poulnot remained on the case for at least 10 years, but ultimately in the end, he didn't find anything.
Oh my God.
Though early in his investigation, he learned that Justin had gotten into an altercation with two men around 1:30 a.m. on the night he went missing.
Okay.
But Poulnot could not find any evidence that linked these men to the case.
Yeah.
So I guess he found them, talked to them, there's nothing there.
Yeah.
He followed leads to South Carolina, Alabama, Florida, and all across Georgia. In just the first 2 months of his investigation, he racked up 200 hours working on the case.
Oh my God.
He usually charges $125 per hour for his services. He hasn't charged Justin's family a single dime.
Oh, thank God.
I know. Then tragically, in January of 2011, Justin's younger brother died.
Oh my God.
I know. So at this point, Erica was finally starting to enter back into the world. So after Justin's disappearance, she fell into a deep depression.
I'm sure she did.
She was barely able to get out of bed in the morning. She had quit her successful career as a real estate agent. She entered back into the working world, working at a sandwich shop, just making sandwiches.
Mm-hmm.
When asked if she wanted to be promoted to manager, she said no. She just wanted to come in, make sandwiches, and leave.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, all of her waking hours were spent trying to find Justin and trying to just make it through the day.
Yeah.
So in January of 2011, it was around 1 p.m. on a cloudy day when Erica went to wake up Jeremy. He was 19 at the time and he was a very talented artist. He was enrolled at Georgia Gwinnett College where he was studying graphic design. The previous night, Jeremy had gone out to dinner with a girl from school. He came home and chatted with his grandmother who was visiting before he headed up to bed. He had talked about how he was excited about the video games he had just picked up to play on his new PlayStation Portable that his parents had gotten him for Christmas. So when Erica went to wake him up, she found him unresponsive, with a shoelace tied around his neck, holding a plastic bag over his face. Police found no drugs in his bedroom and found no suicide note. Authorities weren't sure whether his death was an accident or if it was suicide, but they were leaning more towards suicide, while his family was leaning more towards an accident.
How did you accidentally do that?
I feel like it's one of those things, I can't remember the word it is, but it's kind of like that oxygen deprivation thing where it kind of gives you like this high when you get the air back.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you do it wrong or you hold it too long, you pass out and then you suffocate.
Yeah.
And so the police were like, oh, it was suicide. Like, he did this purposely. And his parents were like, I think he was just trying to do it for the thrill. And then just, because a lot of that happens with like, I don't think this is in his case, but there are those like sexual cases where it's like a form of like, pleasure or whatever. And so people have died that way because they'll do like the strangulation thing and then they can't get it off.
Yeah.
So I cannot imagine what this added loss did to Erica, Stephen, or their family.
Oh my God.
I know. So a potential break in the case came in 2014. So in 2014, a man named Dustin Dylan Glass, a career criminal and self-described gang member.
Sounds like it with that name.
He pleaded guilty to federal and state charges, and in May of 2015, he was sentenced to 14 years as a repeat drug offender. What raised some eyebrows is that Glass had been interviewed about Justin's case previously, but he was never looked further into.
Why?
I don't know. He just wasn't looked further into.
No. Why was he interviewed?
Oh, I guess they just interviewed a ton of people.
Okay.
I could not find a lot about him and this, what I'm going to go into a lot. And I think it might be because the case is still technically open.
Yeah.
So because it's technically open, we're not getting all the information. Which I thought there would be a lot more, but everything again was like kind of the same information.
Yeah.
And I tried to look specifically for this and it's just not there.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So Gwinnett County Sheriff's investigator, Lieutenant Colonel Sim, was able to obtain a photo of Glass. So the photo of Glass was taken inside of a Gwinnett County pawn shop in the early morning hours of November 2nd, 2007.
Okay.
The day that Justin went missing.
Yeah.
So in the photo, Glass appears to be wearing a very familiar diamond earring. So this is a big deal because when Justin had gone out to Wild Bill's on that Thursday night, he had been wearing a very noticeable and unique diamond earring. That was like his thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's 2007, so I gather.
So now we have this Glass guy in a photo with that very noticeable and unique diamond earring in his ear.
Yeah.
Sim said, quote, Glass told me and has confessed in his own way. He said that he took that earring out of Justin's ear the night that he was killed.
Okay.
So on September 2nd, 2015, Martin Leonard Wilkie, who was 57, was charged with concealing a death in Justin Gaines's disappearance. Yeah.
So the Glass guy.
His friend.
His friend?
Martin Leonard Wilkie.
Where did he come from?
I don't know.
What the fuck?
Trust me, I looked. I'm like, who are these people?
Oh my goodness.
So the warrant for his arrest alleged that he and Glass, who was 28, assaulted Gaines and that they ultimately shot him to death. Wilkie and a third man disposed of the body in a, quote, black metal toolbox and supposedly took the toolbox to Walton County, Georgia. But he apparently turned himself into authorities, then posted the $10,000 bond to get out.
Mm-hmm.
So Glass's mother, Thelma Ruth Ballou, and another woman corroborated that story, saying, like, that's what happened to Justin.
Mm-hmm.
Then on August 28th, 2015, Ballou was arrested on unrelated burglary charges, and just 3 days later, on August 31st, she confessed that she had actually helped Glass and Wilkie dispose of the body in the High Shoals area near the Epalchi River. So this prompted a 3-day search by the Gwinnett County Sheriff's Department, who went and dug up old wells in the area looking for Justin's body, but they came up completely empty-handed. On September 21st, Ballou was charged with making false
And that's the mom?
Yes.
Okay.
Was charged with making false statements after she admitted that she lied about helping dispose of the body and where it was to get out of the burglary charges.
Oh, Jesus.
But like, ma'am, accessory to murder is a bit worse than burglary charges.
Correct.
At least in my humble opinion.
Correct.
So after this whole situation, police said that while Ballou lied, she actually did provide some information on Justin's disappearance.
Okay.
So based on all of that information that was gathered with this crew, the whole Wilkie, whatever, this is what Lieutenant Colonel Sim gave as the general theory of Justin's death.
Okay.
So this is what they're speculating based on kind of the information they gathered.
Yeah.
So Justin had a lot of money on him that night and was flashing it around, with the big diamond earring being on display all night. All of this probably caught someone's attention, but attention from not the best people.
Mm-hmm.
So when he left the bar at 1:30 a.m., he was looking for a ride. He was confirmed to be outside of the bar at this time, as he is seen on the cameras outside of the bar.
Okay.
So investigators think that someone, possibly a blonde woman, lured him into a car. The working theory from there is that he was taken to a house in Snellville. When he walked into the garage at the house, the assailants beat and choked him, robbed him, then shot him to death.
So he made it back to his hometown.
To his hometown, yes.
Did they see him on the camera get into a car?
No.
Okay.
So they see him on the camera at 1:30, they see him at 2 something-ish, and then he just kind of walks out of frame.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay.
So the assailants, again, this is what they're speculating, is that the assailants drove to a boathouse on Lake Lanier, which is haunted, which was about 35 miles away. They attached weights to his corpse and tossed it into the lake.
Okay.
But just a few days later, the body resurfaced. So the killers had to return to retrieve it, drive it back to...
How did they know it resurfaced?
I don't know.
That doesn't make any sense.
I don't know. I know. That's like a hole in this.
Yeah.
So they went to retrieve it. They drove it back to Barrow or Walton County and dropped it in a well along the Appalachian River.
What happened to the toolbox it was in?
Right.
The fuck?
Right. So there's a lot of... It's just a lot of holes and a lot of things that don't make 100% sense.
For sure.
Like, one of the investigators said that they might have gone back to the lake to see if it was still down there.
But at that point, why?
Right. You're done. Like, you're kind of wiped clean of it.
Yeah.
So police stated again that this is just a theory of what
It's
happened.
a stupid theory.
But it is similar to Ballou's statement of what had happened. You know, it has some of the similar things.
Yeah.
And per 11 Alive, quote, the houseboat and van are gone forever. The houseboat, I guess, was on the lake.
Mm-hmm.
The owner of the van, boat, and house possibly involved that night died just a few months ago.
Oh, wow.
So it is believed that this person that they're referring to is Wilkie, but that hasn't been confirmed.
I thought he got arrested.
He was arrested, he turned himself in, and then he got out on bond.
And then he died.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So if this death is true, then some of the answers of what happened that night and to Justin are gone forever. So then, later,
They
police...
can't search records for where the fuck the car is?
I don't know.
Seems like someone's not doing their job.
Or it's, again, just stuff that we're not getting, you know?
Yeah, maybe they have already done that.
Because there are so many holes in the story.
Yeah.
But it's because it's an open case, so we're not getting a lot of that information. So later, police were able to recover the earring that Glass had been wearing in that picture. And when the DNA on it was tested, they found that it did not contain Justin's DNA.
How many years had it been?
See, I don't know.
And how many years has it been in?
Right. That's what I was thinking too.
Yeah.
Then
Did they find any DNA or just not his?
Just not his.
Okay.
They didn't mention if they found anything else. They just said they did not find his.
Mm-hmm.
So though Sim, the colonel, said that Glass did admit to taking the earring off of Gaines, he still denied killing him. So Glass was like, I was with him. I took the earring. That was his earring. I didn't kill him, though.
Yeah. I mean, they did say altercation, right?
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yep. So Glass has never been charged in Justin's disappearance. Lieutenant Colonel Sim said, quote, when it gets right down to it, when we ask where the body is and we try to put closure to it, he's lied. And we catch him in another lie. He's not credible. And apparently Glass recorded a video encouraging witnesses to come forward in the case and give information.
Is he trying too hard to deflect?
Right.
Or is he being genuine?
So at this point, I looked up Dustin Dillon Glass.
Yeah.
Because I'm trying to find damn information about this man and what is going on.
Yeah.
So I found an article from August of 2015.
Okay.
I don't know if it's him,
Okay.
but I figured Dustin Dylan Glass, who lives in Georgia,
Yeah.
who is part of a gang,
Narrows down.
I had my 3 matching points.
Yeah.
So I'm like, this is probably him.
Yeah.
So he was a defendant in a racketeering and conspiracy to commit murder case and has been known as the ghost-faced gangster.
Oh.
He has face and neck tattoos.
Okay.
I guess the ghost-face gangsters are actually a group of predominantly white males with violent criminal histories who are thought to operate both inside and outside of the Georgia Department of Corrections facilities.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So he was being charged with 3 counts of the Racketeering Influenced Corruption Organizations
I
Act.
remember hearing about this.
Do you?
Like, whenever we talk about news that's within the last 10 years, it's like we'll say something and I'm like, that sounds oddly familiar.
Yeah. So he was charged with the 3 counts of racketeering, 7 counts of aggravated assault, 1 count of conspiracy to commit murder, and 14 counts of criminal street gang-related acts.
Damn.
So if this is him,
Mm-hmm.
he worked with a few others to murder a man named Chadwick Little, who had been a witness who had testified against Glass's buddy, Chad Ashley Allen, for the murder of Robert Andrew Nichols.
Chad v. Chad.
Oh my God, yeah. But yeah, so Chad killed Robert.
Okay.
Chadwick Little saw it.
Okay.
So now all of Chad's friends
Mhm.
are trying to kill Chadwick because he was a witness.
Okay.
So they're trying to kill him because their friend's on trial for murder.
Got it.
Glass and another friend fired multiple shots at Little's home, with Alan's mother, so Chad's mother, paying the 2 after the shooting. So it was a
What
plan.
are with these moms?
I don't know.
What are you doing?
So Glass pled guilty to multiple counts of conspiracy to commit murder, aggravated assault, violation of the Street Gang Terrorism Act, and possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony. He will serve 7 concurrent 10-year jail terms and 20 years probation.
So 70 years in jail.
And then 20 years probation
Cool.
at the age of however old he is.
Yeah. Dead.
So I don't know if that's him,
Mm-hmm.
but I put my little investigative brain cap on, whatever. And I was like, okay, we have a name that's very, very unique. Dustin Dylan Glass.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're getting charged with murder. You could have already done murder. You're part of the street gang. You say you're a self-proclaimed gangster. Like,
God, the pictures for your case are going to be a bitch to find.
type in his name. It's the first person who pulls up in a green or orange jumpsuit with tattoos all over their face.
Okay.
So another theory,
Mhm.
of course, with the Glass theory not 100% panning out, we do have others that have come about during the investigation in subsequent years. So the next one was brought forward by investigator Michael Rising. He believes that Justin was interested in a girl that was someone else's girlfriend, and that upset some people who got in his face, and that ended badly.
Oldest story in the book.
Right. So we do have some confirmation that Justin had been involved in an altercation that night,
Yeah.
the night he went missing, by witnesses who were also there. So, I mean, Rising needed to start trying to figure out if there was anyone out there who wanted to cause harm to Justin.
Mm-hmm.
So they were pretty much coming up empty on that.
Yeah.
Like they couldn't find anyone who hated him.
That much.
Right.
Yeah.
But early on, one of his friends said that the only person who could have any ill will towards Justin was a well-known drug dealer who operated around the off-campus apartments in Athens. And Athens is where he lives, so I assume
Yeah, well, for school.
for school.
Yeah.
So apparently in those first few months of college, Justin and his friends participated in something called car hopping.
Okay.
This is where you find unlocked cars and pilfer through the car's contents to see what you can take.
Okay.
Always lock your cars.
Well, yeah, but at least they're not fucking breaking windows.
Dad's car window got broken in DC once,
Yeah.
and they took some change. They didn't take his Easy Pass because that's tracked. So they took some change. And instead of fixing the window to have it be broken again, he just put some plastic up, and he's like, if they want to break it, they'll break it. This way I don't have to pay for a new window.
I have some friends who live in DC and they, even though they park in a garage, will just leave it unlocked because then they won't break your windows.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what Dad said. He was like,
And
they
just
broke the
don't
window.
leave anything in the car.
Yeah. And he's like, now they can get in it. They want to get in, they'll get in.
Yeah.
And it's like they were breaking into a 2004 Corolla.
Must be loaded.
That was my first car.
LOL.
I was like, of all the cars you see, you're going to take the one that has missing hubcaps. And what are you doing?
This guy must be loaded.
So someone had suggested that they target the drug dealer's car, which they were sure would have tons of cash in it. When Justin approached the car, the dealer was standing on his front porch, which immediately diffused the situation and stopped him from trying to car hop this one.
Sure.
So we never actually did it. So it's
But is it are you pissed about intention?
maybe.
Yeah.
A few theories have also come forward through a website that Erica started for Justin. On the website, Erica has her phone number and her email listed as points of contact if anyone does have information they want to share. Many people have reached out to provide tips this way, some from all the way in Bolivia to Peru to other locations through the US.
Wow.
There have been some psychics and astrologists who have reached out on their own with theories. Some tips have come from complete quacks, probably just wanting the reward that is being offered for tips to help find Justin.
Absolutely, because people are assholes.
They are. But Erica keeps them all on the phone, coaxing as much information out of the tipsters as possible. And all of this she records verbatim on an Olympus recorder.
Okay.
So one tip she received came from an older woman who claimed that she was holding Justin in her basement as a, quote, boy toy sex slave.
Oh my God.
I know. So as awful as this sounds, Erica says that in this one, at least it means that Justin is still alive.
Fair.
Other theories start off with, quote, we've heard your son's been murdered. Some of these that Erica has heard are pretty fucked. So there was one tip that claimed that Justin was fatally beaten with his skull crushed in, crying for his mom.
Oh my God.
Some claim he is in a lake, in a well, buried in a baseball field, left beside a train track. Some claim that he was put through a wood chipper. Some say he is buried by his mother's house, staying there to haunt her.
Ew.
I know. Of course, these tips would mean that Justin isn't out there alive anymore.
Right.
One theory came early on from a woman named Mary Beth Wren, a psychic from Charlotte.
Mm-hmm.
So in the early stages of the investigation, she came to Duluth to help with the searches. Her gut had told her that Justin was sticking up for a girl he was interested on the dance floor, and that the girl's boyfriend exacted revenge.
Okay.
Wren believes that key evidence lays in the back of a big black van, possibly a Ford Ecoline, and that his remains are somewhere in murky and swampy water with a high bacteria count. Wren's mind fixates on Alabama.
Okay.
Quote, there are different theories, claimed Chief Deputy Solis. The hard part about the theories, are they credible?
Mm-hmm.
So, of course, some of these theories are almost impossible to look into just because of, like, what they are. How are you going to find this old woman's house?
Right.
Or, you know, like, he's in murky, swampy water. That's, like, all of Alabama.
Right.
You know, like, there's a lot of things that you just can't look into.
Yeah.
And like Solis said, it's hard to believe the credibility of any of them.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to look into something that you don't even know? Like, you know, it's just...
You can't. I mean,
you
it's
can't.
too much to do everything.
Yeah.
It's too overwhelming.
So in the summer of 2019, news of human remains found near Lake Lanier was released. Quote, it's hard, it's wearing. Every time you hear something about skeletal remains, it makes your mind run and wander and relive everything you've heard over the years, said Justin's mom, Erica. As of today, I don't believe those remains ended up belonging to Justin.
When she says as of today, what was today?
Today.
Today.
I'm saying as of today because I tried to look to see if those remains belonged to him and they couldn't find anything. So this news report came out in 2019. They were going to test the DNA.
Then nothing else.
Then there would have been an article or something if it had been him, and there wasn't.
Yeah. Okay.
So today, Justin's disappearance remains unsolved, but foul play is suspected. The Walton County Sheriff's Department is now leading the investigation. Investigator Rising said that as of 2023, leads are still coming forward, and he currently has 3 that he feels good about. Erica told Dateline, at this point, the family just wants closure. Quote, it's not even about arresting someone anymore. It's just about bringing him home and having closure. Erica, Justin's mother, started the Justin Time Foundation, so Justin Time.
Yeah, I got it.
To, quote, provide timely support for children and families who suffer the unexpected loss of a parent or guardian.
Okay.
So just a physical description of what Justin looked like on the night he went missing. So he was born on March 31st, 1989, so today he would be 35. He has brown hair, blue eyes, and at the time of his disappearance, he stood somewhere between 5'10 and 5'11 and weighed between 210 and 230.
Okay.
He had one front tooth that is discolored from a root canal and bumps on one side of his nose that he has had since birth. He was last seen wearing a gray Abercrombie long-sleeve shirt.
Abercrombie.
Of course. Ripped blue jeans and white tennis shoes. He typically wears a diamond stud in one ear, possibly in both. There's been a $25,000 reward that is being offered for information leading to an arrest. Those who provide a tip could also remain anonymous if they want to. And what was cute is this reward was given to the family anonymously by just someone who was like, here's a reward if you guys get information.
That's so nice.
So if anyone has information, please contact Crime Stoppers or the Gwinnett County Police Department. Detective John Richter can also be reached. You can contact Walton County Sheriff's Office Investigator Michael Rising. The case agency number, I can provide that as well, or private investigator Bob Poulnot. All of these numbers will be included in our show notes. I'm not going to ramble off numbers. No one's going to remember them, so I'll put them in the show notes. So if you do happen to have any information, literally anything at all, please call. You might think that the piece of information is insignificant, but it could be the missing piece that is needed to find where Justin is.
Absolutely.
So if you have anything, please contact one of the numbers that we will list in our show notes. So that is the disappearance of Justin Gaines.
Stories like that are crazy to me.
I know.
Where,
and he's literally been described as the boy who fell off the face of the earth.
Yeah. I'm like, okay, clearly he probably wandered off. If he couldn't get a ride, I could easily see him coming to the conclusion, I'll just start walking.
Right.
But where? Where did, someone would have had to pick you up and take you so far away.
Yeah. And the fact that he didn't call his parents, like, it seems like they've told him, like, you can call us.
Right. They seem very supportive, like non-judgmental, that kind of thing.
Right. And it's kind of one of those things that a lot of parents do where it's like, call me, no questions asked, I'll bring you home. And it seems like maybe he's done it before.
Yeah.
So that's why they thought it was weird that he didn't do it this time.
So I wonder if he walks out of frame and they can't like see, and there is that possible theory, some like a blonde or whatever
lured him to the car.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And so I wonder if like maybe he was about to call.
Yeah. Because
You
I think
know?
that's a good theory because he was a
Yeah.
partier. He was known to want to party. He even asked his dad before he left the house. He held up 2 shirts. He's like, which one do you think the ladies will like?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like a
Yeah, yeah,
typical
yeah.
teenage boy thing.
Yeah.
But, you know, he's going there to meet women.
Yeah.
And so it could be that, like, he sees this girl. She's this awful person, but she thought
Yeah.
he had all this money. So she lures him into the car,
Yeah.
brings him back to the house, prepared to rob him. And then,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
and back then, like, diamond earrings were diamond earrings. Like, they're not
Sure.
like the fake ones that I wear to work. You know,
Right,
they're like
right.
real diamond earrings.
Yeah.
And so, yeah. So hopefully, because as of 2023, Investigator Rising had information
Okay.
and like had 3 very strong leads that he was working on.
Mhm.
So maybe within the next year or 2,
Yeah.
hopefully those leads will pan out to something and we'll get more information. But yeah, like I said, as of now, they haven't closed the case.
Yeah.
It's going cold, but they haven't closed it.
Okay.
So hopefully the reason I didn't have a ton of information is because they're holding a lot.
And it's still ongoing.
Yeah.
And yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yep.
Well, wowza.
I know.
Good storytelling, sad story.
Thank you. Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah. It is sad.
Yeah.
But yes, that's Georgia. Last time we did Georgia, it was also really sad.
Oh, I did a cult last time.
And I covered those 2 guys who were killed
That was such a
by the
sad
Satanists.
story.
I know. Ugh.
Makes me so sad.
And then before that, I covered a sea serpent. So the ultima
I
haha.
don't think I did Georgia the first time.
You didn't.
So
Nora covered Lake Lanier.
there we go. There it is.
Yep.
Got it. Okay.
Yep.
Mhm.
But yeah, thanks for listening.
As always,
We did our intro at the beginning, so go do the things we told you to go do.
we always do our intro at the beginning. You mean we did our PSA?
We told you where to go to like things, and that's what I meant. That's the thing.
Yeah.
So stay scary.
Stay safe.